August 10th, 2016. This is the Engineering Committee of the Board of Architectural Engineering Examiners. We are meeting in Room 1B of the Davy Crockett Tower at 500 James Robertson Parkway in Nashville, Tennessee. And notice of this committee meeting was posted on the website on August 1st, 2016. We will start with roll call. Wanda?
Oh, I'll do it. Stephen King. Here. Hal Bother.
Here.
Laura Rainbow.
Here.
Robert Campbell.
Here.
Ricky Bersai.
Here.
Philip Lynn. You have a quorum.
Thank you. So we will begin by reviewing some open applications. They've been assigned to various board members, and we will take a few minutes to review and then reconvene the meeting. Versailles, are you in a position for us to begin, or would you like a few more minutes?
Begin.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Laura, you had Alzarol.
Azarel, from what I understand. Mr. Campbell, but Mr. Lim and Mr. Balthrop would like to discuss.
I do. My hesitancy with it, and maybe I just need some clarification, but candidate does not have an ABET accredited undergraduate degree. I'm sorry, go ahead, Rob.
We had an evaluation, I believe, from Dr. Smith saying that's what the deficiency I was, because he had, it looked like he had 3 people that were, or more, actually all of his people, I think, were licensed somewhere. They were,
Where do you see that?
it just says state of registration, but then there's somewhere, there's a,
Oh. I just was.
Fundamentals. All right, and what was my comment?
too many folders in here. Let me go back to. I looked at the, says, verify substantial compliance with plans, specifications, and design, provide project oversight, senior engineer in preparation of geotechnical reports, which I think is certainly would be considered. Perform bearing capacity testing for shallow foundation, which again, you can, I know that some of that's, retaining walls and MSC at walls observation and testing. So I saw a couple of years of the progressive engineering experience and a couple more years in this thing called construction. But there were a lot of things even in that time that looked like he did work as part of that.
But he doesn't really talk about what's the breakdown of that, because most of what he's doing in the construction testing is really just oversight.
I mean, I'm looking at the 13 through 2015, and I'm not.
But even that's only 3.
Senior engineer in the preparation of geotechnical reports, field layout. So I mean, that to me is,
Right.
Right,
He's done
so-
some.
and then obviously the 120 to 420 is not a big deal. 2000 to 2008. Again, preparing reports on all projects, and this may have been outside the United States, and I probably gave him some credit for that. Prepared bill quantity for various projects, and then again in the project management. So I basically said he had a couple years in construction experience that I thought were, if you use the progressive experience thing, met check marks, and then a couple years it looked like in geotechnical report. That's what I base my decision on the experience on. Well, if we give him credit for what he did, from 2000, which, see, that's the thing about the progressive engineering experience. It doesn't say necessarily from day one you're going to be designing something. It says that you're practice for an engineer to start out doing field-related stuff as they move into design. But 2000,
He was a teacher. He was, according to his record.
Yeah, I don't think he was.
I started in 2000 just because it looked like that's when he was actually. Either or is more than 12 years.
All right, let's, for the PE exam in civil. So those that feel that he is next, we'll go to Mr. Buell. Ricky, you have Mr. Buell. Supplemental experience detail.
Better. I think that's it.
Yeah. So you're ready.
I was really looking at, I was looking at the form. Did you?
Well,
Is
with,
there two files?
Yeah. he submitted. What's your
I saw that.
recommendation?
I approve. It looks like. After 4 or 5 years, we might say maybe another year.
Real quickly though, I think I did ask for more experience or updated. I think that was, his initial one did not look great to me. But then when I got the additional experience and it said stuff like design stone and asphalt, typical sections, talking about haul road design and some of the other things that he had done while with load, felt like that was probably a pretty good progressive engineering experience.
Uh, Doss.
Well, I don't know about are we required, what about, it says we can grant him.
I was fine. My only concern was that we were consistent with other people that had, not in general necessarily, but we had math and science, and I agree. I mean, send him back.
To talk about it, make sure we
I
were
just want to make sure
consistent.
we were consistent on what we had done in the past, that's all.
Have a copy, Steve? Okay. All right. Anyone object? I didn't ask that. I apologize. Okay.
Yeah, and Hal, I mean, I know in the past, when somebody's come up short and Dr. Smith has looked, we've said, no, go back to school. But that's, I don't know that total consistency is what really we're after. We're looking at the applicants and their individual experiences. So I don't know that this is totally consistent with what we said, but it sounds like the right thing based on what his experience is. I think we
And I think my consistency argument was just to make sure that we felt that there had been some applicants that we thought maybe technically should have gone back, because
Yeah.
maybe they didn't get some stuff in the past, but this guy applicant looks like he should have. That did make sense to me on that. So you're right. I mean, not across. Mr. Hammond works for a company that provides asphalt equipment for asphalt contractors. I had a tough time with Mr. Hammond, like I do a lot of times with people that work for suppliers or exactly how much of that is I ask Wanda to have Mr. Hammond send a updated part, and that's really what I focused on, because it appeared to me that for a prolonged period of time he was actively involved in providing specifications, writing with other people, specifications for milling, for cold place asphalt, and doing a lot of things in the asphalt. He would be somebody that I, as an engineer, would call. What should I do? And rather than somebody that I would say, what kind of widget do you have on the shelf? Question and answer is, did he get information and did he come up with talks about writing specifications. I mean, there's a lot of things in there, analysis, preparing reports, and you know, you can go in and check off a lot of the boxes with him on that. I reckon the question is, how firm are those boxes? I mean, how big? Went ahead because it looked like from the updated experience he had invested more than just a cursory. I'm here on a committee. But close one. I mean, straight up, it was a close one for me, even with the update. I think and the other thing that hurts him is his experience has been very narrow.
Testing us, Mr. King. Thank you.
I'm testing myself.
That's okay.
Failed.
You're looking.
All right.
You're looking. I like
Mr.
it.
Hammond is approved for sitting for the PE exam. Hillenbrand, excuse me, is mine. I don't know if you want to open his file. Steve, are you familiar with him? I think
Yeah.
he's, okay.
Yeah.
Would you be comfortable? So the experience that I read in the application basically dealt with the review of design plans for conformance with code and that's very critical and important. I wanted to have some conversation on whether that constituted progressive engineering experience or any Robert, you also maybe had a question as well.
The municipality. Um,
take on that level of experience or responsibility as it might.
I think it's pretty good experience, but I can see Robert's point. It's
Yeah, I mean, I'll weigh in, and I know Boone, and Boone, he's, I mean, seems to be very
Competent.
competent on the, you know, I mean, I've never had any, really work or anything, but I go back on the reviewer side, because I don't a lot of times understand where the review ends and the engineering begins. Taking my data and putting it into something, you're not really starting from scratch, and that's probably a bad way to say it, but that's probably. I've probably had these discussions a couple times, not just with Steve, but with other people in the city and other. There's enough capital project type things that are going on that, you know, somebody like Boone, I think, could do it. So if you had a section of sidewalk, you know, he could develop a set of plans to do that, or that he could get some of that experience and, you know, prove that able to go again from scratch rather than to take my assumptions and to check them. And again, frankly, this is probably more of a philosophical debate on.
But that's been a consistent approach to reviewing all applications.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to see that. I understand the review's got, you know, is it worth 1 year, 2 years? How many years of progressive experience do you give it? I give it some. I just don't give it all 4 years of experience. And I would hope that taking that knowledge, you should then be able to turn around and do something kind of that. I'll give you where I kind of dropped it when I was looking at it. I said, okay, now, could I say, here's a 10-lot subdivision, go. I couldn't answer the question. I mean, I don't know well enough, you know, does he know to go do this and then this and then this and then this? Or has he picked it up from step 4 or something and gone from there? And, you know, with a license, he's going to have the ability to do that. So that's my biggest concern is, I'm still kind of back where I was. I mean, and again,
Would an interview,
well, Yeah, I mean, I know Boone. I mean, it's not a question of, again, that part of it. It just has, again, we're getting ready to turn him loose on society. I would entertain anything, but I mean, right now I'm kind of still on no. Up that could be a little bit more expounded on or whatever, but
No, that's fine. Are we offering any instruction to the candidate to help themselves? So, no, but if they want to.
asked that once, and I think that was on the additional information. All is, you know, still a lot of the same that he had. I mean, it's not that he restated poorly what he had done in the past. It's
About the interview, in his paragraph, he says, I've been involved in the design aspect of hundreds of projects, but gap in, or a difference of definition of design, I guess, what.
I agree with what Robert's saying. There's a under a PE's supervision. And so if we take that 4 years of experience that you would need if you're doing design under the supervision of a PE, and say that, I think what Robert's saying is, you know, there is experience there, it's just not coming at the same clip as when you're doing design every day. So maybe maybe we talk about just him needing more seasoning, more time before he applies to be a PE, and press the design end of experience.
Okay.
I'm going to dovetail on that a little bit. Is that, again, doing this, and this is probably where I may be inconsistent with. But then the next, if you're just reviewing and that's all you're doing your entire 10 years, let's say.
My experience also as a municipal other comments or questions about this candidate?
Well, say that even though I understand what Robert and Ricky and Hal, y'all are saying, you know, one can be a design engineer without doing all the details of a project. And my experience with the stormwater engineers doing this review, they are probably more knowledgeable than a high percentage of the consultants' work that they review on the stormwater part. You know, routing the runoff through a pond and the multi-stages of the discharge of the outlet structure. Also, then reviewing the runoff from a water quality standpoint, because, you know, the city has to maintain this NPDES permit and do all the reporting for all that. So I guess I would come down on the side that these engineers or engineering interns are getting some quality experience. It's not the same kind of experience, but no one's going to get everything we want them to get. I think they do get a progressive engineering experience. It's just not the kind that some on the board would like to see, but I think it's good experience, and I think he ought to be allowed to see it. But
You're abstaining?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry, approved?
sitting right here.
I didn't notice your arm movement.
he's just so.
You were
I think
so
if we
subtle
approved
and
the last
stealth.
one, this one is about the, you know,
Okay.
I think this is.
Okay, we will move forward with the approval of Mr. Hillebrand. All right. Mr. Lim is already approved. All right, let me qualify one thing before we continue with the app review. Casey, are you still here? Do you need to, you had indicated. I wouldn't mind if we get into the next agenda item, which is the motions. If you, yeah. So would that help you? And does anyone object to us veering from the agenda to do that?
You need to leave now.
Soon, and I don't know that we'll have time to finish the reviews of the apps and do the annual meeting motions, and she would like to participate in that discussion. Does anyone object to us going out of order? Okay, John, do you mind leading us through the motions? Okay.
And it's on your iPads right after the agenda. You have all the motions that'll be presented at the annual meeting in a couple of weeks in Indianapolis. And let's see, yeah, I think it's going to be Philip. That's it. I was wondering if it was Stephen or Philip. And then Ben and I will be attending as well. So we got several delegates attending that meeting. And first of all, I'll go through the motions that are on the non-consent agenda, because these are ones that we know are going to be votes on the floor separate from those on the consent agenda. First is Finance Motion 3. It's the very first motion. And that's going to set the CBT computer-based testing PE exam price at $375. Of course, at this point, none of those exams are computer-based yet, but that's coming down the pike very soon. So that's going to set that cost at $375, and it will require, I think, starting next year, that all exam fees will be paid directly to NCEES. Would have that in Tennessee. Most states are already doing that. And just for comparison, the current cost of the FE exam, computer-based exam, is $225. It's $300 for the professional surveying exam. And currently the pencil and paper PE exam is set at $350. So it's a $25 increase basically over what the current cost of the PE exam is. I want to take a position on any of these, then.
Does anyone object to us taking position, so those in attendance will have
About how you want to vote on them, of course.
anyone object to that motion? Okay, looks like we're.
Under Special Committee on Bylaws, Motion 7 regards the adoption of an international affiliate organization category of NCAAS membership. There was a motion about this at last year's meeting that moved that the bylaws be amended this year to create this category of membership. The Board of Directors opposes this motion and the following motions through motion 12 because the proposed definition does not delineate that the organization would indeed be international or from a foreign country. So they're recommending that an appropriate committee revise the definition next year. So that seems like a approach, yeah.
Take the whole group then, anyone object to doing them in totality? Reference to the position of the BOD.
Mr. Balther, can we do affirmative votes? Because if a failure to object could also be an abstention, and we wouldn't necessarily have an affirmative vote of aye, that this is the vote that we want the board to take. Sorry, I just kind of.
No, I appreciate your counsel. Okay, so.
But here's the question though, if we're not gonna vote on these until the annual meeting, I mean, are the representatives bound by what the board says?
Well,
Or
the
do we have
problem
any
is
language to that?
amendments are proposed at the meeting that can change
That's what I'm
the
saying.
language of the motion, so that,
So they're going to vote there?
yeah.
Yeah.
you-
So we're just
Officially,
discussing.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're-
But
that's
just in
okay.
general, for the applications, we'll just go back to affirmative votes.
Understood,
Thank
okay,
you.
thank you.
It could change at the meeting
Okay, well,
potentially, yeah.
This is to just, I guess,
Good
get a
point.
consensus on the current language as presented today, so. Okay.
All right, ACCA, motion 1. This seems kind of silly, but it's a big deal for the Board of Directors. It's amending a financial policy to allow the president and president-elect to have the discretion to purchase business class airfares for trips greater than or equal to 5 hours of total in-air flying time each way to mitigate the stress of frequent travel. And the current policy allows this for trips greater than or equal to 3 hours actual flying time with the treasurer's oversight. The Board of Directors is not endorsing this because they think that they should be able to travel business class as long as they stay within their approved budget, so anyways. So they're not endorsing that motion.
Fine with no, but I think this is a silly argument that they're having, trying to figure out how to spend more money. I mean, that, to me, ought to get on video conferencing a lot more, but.
Any other comments then, and we can just, I tell you what, moving forward, if anyone has any major opinion
We'll just assume, unless you speak up otherwise, that you'll support the Board of Directors' position on them. Okay. ACCA Motion 8 moves that a special committee on bylaws be charged with amending the bylaws section regarding elections and terms of office to state that the treasurer shall not be eligible for re-election to the same office until at least one full 2-year term has elapsed. And the purpose is to give more individuals the opportunity to serve in a leadership role. The Board of Directors believes that by leaving the treasurer term at 2 years, the 2 zones that are currently in sync with the treasurer's election, those zones being the northeast and the southern zones, are going to be given an advantage. So they are recommending that the term length be changed to 3 years to remedy the situation. So they're not currently endorsing this motion, but it could be. Motion 9 moves that a committee on bylaws be charged with amending the bylaws section regarding vacancies to state that in the event of a vacancy in the office of treasurer, the Board of Directors shall select an individual to fill the position until an election is held at the annual business meeting in the next odd-numbered year. And they endorse. LG Motion 12. This is the one that's generated some controversy with the engineering societies, moves that the model law and model rules be amended to add language for structural engineers parallel to that of professional engineers and professional surveyors. The Board of Directors endorses this, but we've received a letter, which is included in your materials, from the NCSEA, the structural engineers, supporting this, and another letter from NSPE opposing it. I think because it's perceived as potentially a backdoor approach to endorsing separate licensure for structural engineers, which, as I understand it, is not the intent. I think they're adding structural engineers to the model law and rules simply because some states need that language, states that already are licensing them separately. It's to provide guidance for them, but I can see why there might be concern about that.
This is the one that failed last year.
No, it's a different motion, but
Yeah, the motion.
that actually would have created, I think, in the
This is-
model.
This is a lesser degree of it, but it's kind of,
That's NSPE's concern, definitely, yeah,
that's what I read about.
right.
Allows candidates to sit for the SE as a substitution for the,
Well, yeah, we would issue a license up to anyone upon passing the SE, correct, yeah.
I mean, just not making an issue, but just pointing out a
License is a PE license.
yeah,
that you
it's
would-
non,
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
yes,
It's not an SE
non-specific,
license.
yeah, discipline neutral. So, Casey, did you want to add anything to?
No, I really just wanted to listen to you.
I recall, I've sat in some presentations by out that it's in terms of public health and safety, that not any Firstly to that, by virtue of us not licensing by discipline, they still have the latitude, or an entity can seek someone with that designation and pass the SE exam. So it doesn't prohibit them from marketing themselves with that credential. Commerce in that regard, or cause a problem. So asked that this board will hear about it, but it's an interesting issue.
I've got one quick question, I think. What difference does it make to the state of Tennessee? Whether we do this or not? Yeah, I mean, what,
Model law and rules being amended, it'll have no direct impact on Tennessee at
I'm
all.
saying, so I mean.
Unless we adopt the model law and rules.
Except when you get to the legislature and you use.
For that reason, I think that thank you for saying that, Crystal. If it's in the model law, even though they're endorsing it, I think that we're tacitly giving our approval that that is a good way to go. And I think that while I understand what the structural engineers and I understand their point, we start getting these little divisions, and before long, we're going to have the bench engineer. I don't know that we start getting this thing too far. I mean, it's just, and this is social commentary. I mean, we live in a culture that everybody wants to be in their own separate space. I mean, before long, we're going to have 7,000 lanes in the interstate because nobody wants to. I just think that we're moving down that hill that's, I think we ought to vote no, is what I'm trying to say. I should say that in a little bit more succinct way. I'm sorry.
In mind, I'm sorry, yeah, finish everyone, I didn't mean to. But we are, or since I've been on the board anyway, we have not adopted the model law or require individuals to be a model law engineer. Are portions of the model law that we cite from time to time, but states, to your knowledge, that exclusively requires a model.
I doubt any state's adopted it verbatim.
This isn't reflective of how we feel about the model law, this is reflective.
Well,
This is, we acknowledge that the model law will affect us.
But the other thing is it might affect us if the model law is more apt to be adopted by other states, and we have a PE here in this state who wants to do work in that other state. And they may not let that person.
So our red.
Yeah, I think to think that it can't affect Tennessee, we're just not seeing all the effect downstream. Yeah, so I think we ought to vote against this, and I agree with what Robert said there. And this is talking to structural engineers that feel like the faction that's pushing this to set themselves up. The same thing could be done by mechanical engineers and electrical engineers and civil engineers. Everything can affect life safety, and everything's really important. And people die from bad engineering in all disciplines. So it's not just structural engineering. So why would it end at structural engineering?
I'm not advocating either way. I know that you all will give it a fair. Let's proceed if we can.
What was the decision on that, to oppose that, or, okay. Let's see, Financial Reserves Task Force, motion 1. This would create a reinvestment committee that would be authorized, well, actually, it's moving that a committee amend the bylaws to create a reinvestment committee, which would be authorized to award up to 5% of invested reserves each year to support the mission and vision, which would have an impact of about $10,200 annually. The Board of Directors opposes, based on legal advice, that NCAAS fiduciary responsibilities belong to the Board of Directors in accordance with the South Carolina Nonprofit Corporation Act. Therefore, non-board committees should not have those responsibilities, and the board not endorse. Yeah. Northeast Zone Resolution 1, there's only one of them, resolve that the NCAAS Board of Directors remove the automatic approval option that was approved at the February Board of Directors meeting, which allows applicants to sit for the professional exams after attesting to meeting the selected board's requirements, and create a task force or special committee to study this issue further. You may recall I've discussed it previously that, I think last meeting actually, that NCAAS is allowing 3 options for boards to approve candidates to sit for the professional exams. One is the manual method, which is what we currently do for engineer exam applicants, where you approve the applicants to sit, and then we manually notify NCAAS of that authorization. The second is an exam or education restricted option, where the boards can specify that candidates have to have passed the FE exam and have an ABET accredited degree, for example, in order to sit for the PE exam. And the third is the attestation option, this automatic approval option, where applicants simply attest when they register for the exam that they've met the requirements of their home state, and then they're automatically authorized to sit. And the Board of Directors is not endorsing this motion to remove that option, in part because some member boards have actually requested that this option be available. So they're only providing it at the request of some states that want this particular option. So not endorsing.
To your knowledge, that
I think there's some that currently use it.
they let
I'm-
anyone sit, or they don't
Yeah.
pre-approve eligibility to take the exam.
It's
but-
just an attestation. Of course, they review the applicant's credentials after they've passed the exam when they apply with the state, but just to sit for the test, they're not requiring any review. So there's a handful.
And leaving all three options in would allow us, if we looked at it long-term. Last board meeting before last, by the
Last one.
deputy commissioner, okay.
Right.
Where they would actually go through NCAAS and then we would verify. But it gives three, I mean, it gives,
It gives NCAAS that opportunity
well, it gives,
too.
but it lets member boards still do that, and, but it's up to the member board to decide if they wanna take that or not, and
Right.
as long as that flexibility's there, I don't think it's fine to keep it. You know, this is, they ought to have, if they're all fired up about these motions, why don't they have one that says, once we voted on something, we can't just turn around and vote on something different? If they voted on it
Make your
last
mind.
year, yeah, I mean, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but anyway.
Board of Directors on that
All
one.
in.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, yeah, I would agree with that too. Southern Zone Resolution resolves that Financial Policy 4 be amended to state that each zone shall be granted an equal sum of money each year from the funds of the council for attendance of up to 75 members at the zone meetings. Additional funding by the council for attendance above 75 members shall be granted to the respective zone at $200 per member, and the projected financial impact is $7,500 annually. And of course, the Southern Zone is proposing this, and this was discussed at our zone meeting, of course, in Nashville earlier this year. We're proposing it because our zone typically has the highest attendance numbers, but we get the same amount of money the Northeast Zone gets when they have like maybe half the attendees that we do, and that's viewed as unfair. So this is zones that have more attendance, like our zone, could get more funding to help cover those costs. So, sounds good.
I'm in favor of it, but here's the thing that we ought to look at. We ought to say that these zone meetings can only last maximum 2 days.
Yeah, I agree.
Off half a day one day, and it's just like, if you're there to do business, do business. If you're there to goof off, then goof off. I mean, I think that's,
A lot of boondoggle.
well, I think that's been the history of the thing.
The
right?
Southern
I hate
Zo-
boondoggles.
I just-
Waste everybody's
Southern
time.
Zone enjoys the hospitality of the fellowship more than maybe some of the other. That's why everybody wants to partner with the Southern Zone. And why the
They get
Southern
it
Zone,
done, right?
why the
Well-
Southern Zone doesn't want anyone to.
Yeah, some zones do have 2-day meetings, like you suggest. They have a proposed agenda for 2-day meetings, but we drag it out over 3 days. Yeah, so.
I'll shut up, but I just.
So I guess y'all are supportive of that one, right?
Yes.
I'm assuming.
I'm gonna go to Puerto Rico.
Tell you what, John, before we continue, can we take a 10-minute recess? Does anyone- 09?
Are we gonna go through the consent agenda as well?
We might try.
We need to go
Oh,
through-
I've got a few on the consent that, just to bring to your
Just
attention.
selectively we'll go through
Yeah,
those?
not through all of
Because
them.
they
no.
endorse every one of them.
Let's meet at 2:20, reconvene at 2:20.
Actually, I don't think it's, I don't know.
Do you want me to do it?
It's flashing.
Back to us turning the fluorescent lights
Try
off.
something. My eyes flashing, and I'm gonna see if it's. If not, I'm gonna go to the eye.
Venice was a
I don't know,
little
it
cooler
only
because
does
it's
it
on
every
the
so
ocean.
often.
Let's get back to applications. Laura was going to talk with us about the Kenny app.
Kenny is a bachelor's of science in industrial engineering and a master's of. And the really data processing kind of GPS. He's moved to Tennessee and wants to. Works for Wingfield Scale Company. Inventory control and post-processing data for client. A lot of experience with the engineering industry. An engineering project, mostly in the mining. One was a structural rehabilitation of structural supports in a vertical mine shaft. So his request is for us, because he does not work under the supervision of PEs and really is not going to have any opportunity to. And he talks about, he said, active mine designs, but I don't see that there's anything that. Really, he hasn't applied. He wants guidance. We have people in our company that do these kinds of things, but they're certainly not on the, they're.
And Wanda, were you, and it may have, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, he has not
He
applied. I'm
wants
very
guidance.
sorry.
He
Okay.
wants guidance
I-
before
Yeah.
he's
I misunderstood.
I think he just wants to know.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Ricky. Sure.
Before we talk about experience, is there any question about his degree? Is that,
Oh, I haven't checked any of that.
have not?
He has a
Oh,
BS in
school of mines is
industrial.
big time.
He
The
has
master's is Colorado School of Mines,
okay.
but it's in engineering management.
But
a
the,
BS in industrial engineering.
Right, that might be a good.
Yeah. Y'all recall, was it anything else? Ricky,
I mean, I thought that's where we ought to start, is to
Okay,
make
sure,
sure
yeah.
he's got a degree that allows him with our laws.
Yeah, of course, I had to make sure of that, but
Yes, right, okay.
So y'all may recall, there are occasions where similar situations that got references from PEs that were clients or Is that a hang-up for anybody on the
Let
committee?
me, and Laura said that exactly right, but let me make sure I just maybe add something to it. We have taken those references, but they have had to be people that have pretty good knowledge of what that applicant is doing and have had to been involved with that applicant throughout the process of whatever their design experience they're claiming. It can't be a professor at school or a friend that they happen to know through a professional organization or something like that. It's had to be somebody that I reviewed their work or interacted with them over the last 2 years on this project or something where they were able to really, get a good in-depth look at what they were doing. It can't just be, well, I know so-and-so.
References them, but it's passive language. He doesn't say what he does. Robert describes from those kinds of engineers, because I know, I mean, those.
With active mine design for 6 years. Does that not require engineering?
He's been involved, no, what he's been involved with is processing data for active mine design.
I think they've been doing like LiDAR scanning or something. He's been doing the LiDAR reduction is the way I kind of took it. I mean, I can almost
South
do that.
Dakota School of Mines and Technology, that could be a technology degree.
Please.
I looked it up, and they do have an EAC ABET accredited program in industrial engineering at that school.
About the engineering.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Did it say when it?
1991. Yeah.
That's okay, and if you.
Well,
He didn't know.
he signed at EIT, so I'm
he
assuming
did, of course he
he's
did.
passed the FE. Yeah. But we haven't.
Other discussion on Mr. Kenny? So our launch. Ready for Mr. Martin.
I knew everything about this case an hour ago, and I can't remember anything now. Yeah, this applicant is reapplying because his license expired, and from his letter, it was unintentional, just that it expired, and he has continued to practice. Has stamped a couple of projects that occurred, and so he is.
What were our comments, Wanda? Do you?
You just said.
I didn't put all that. That was kind of my thought too. I mean, even though he's self-reported, should we open a file on this person and process that before we do anything in terms of?
Have a complaint opened against this individual already. Under the statute, he's not been found guilty of a violation as of yet, and therefore there would not be a basis to refuse to renew. So if he meets, refuse to issue.
Well, and we have obviously approved people reapplying that have had discipline issues that have been resolved in the past. So that wasn't, if he's already kind of admitting that he messed up, and you answered the question, we can't do anything until we officially do something. So I would be okay with approving him to go if we've already got a complaint open, and that'll be heard on a different course. But, somebody coming in new that has admitted they messed up, I think I'll just at least start out with one strike against them, but if we've already got a complaint, that answers that.
Right, and there's no real prohibition on issuing a license and then, let's say the particular violation was egregious enough and they agreed to it or found guilty at a formal hearing, that we couldn't just then immediately take the license back away. They're kind of separate and distinct entities. So if they meet the qualifications, we'll issue. If there's a previous violation that was sufficient enough, we could refuse to issue. But this person does not have any previous history of disciplinary action.
Yes, sorry, Ricky.
I feel compelled, since Philip isn't here, to say, can we ask him to take the laws and rules exam?
Is there a problem with that stipulation? And he was was he a committee, or a reapply, sorry, he's a reapply.
Does that mean he has to take the test again?
Not laws and rules is what,
No, I know. I
No,
just
but
wondered
he-
if he has
yeah.
to take the PE exam again.
no.
Not reapply. They basically say that
Any-
they take care of affidavit and then take care of it.
Is that a problem for us to require the passing of laws and rules?
I would probably state that it'd probably be better to put that along with the disciplinary action.
It's almost a
Oh,
rock
that's
solid
right. Good
cinch
thought.
that we're gonna put that as
And-
part of this one.
Channeling your best Philip Lim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cinch. We'll put that on there as a part of the discipline, part of the Philip Lim.
Any other discussion on Mr. Martin? Is everyone in agreement to approve then? Robert?
Oh, I'm
can you
fine, yes,
sign?
I will.
All right. Let's continue on. Steve, you had Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Similar to Mr. Hillenbrand, I think, but it's not review, it's hospital world. That's his entire experience, is working in, he's been working with commissioning different facilities and that kind of thing related to building. And I can't seem to get to the right place.
The second file has his progress.
Chairman, while he's looking for that, can we discuss the new format just a little bit?
No, I hate it.
I mean, well, and there may not be, but it seems like we'll start down a path and all of a sudden it's like, well, crap, it's somewhere else. And then we have to go, I mean, it's,
No, it's because, of course, with paper.
All one
To them,
document.
It's like maybe 4 different things they have to open and look at.
Having to send those as attachments to anyone besides myself? Because I can't log on the,
Well, what, I put them on the server to Mr. Campbell now.
well, but still, I think you're getting them in sort of an ad hoc fashion though, right? I mean, if you get a new this or new that, they're not all in, here's all the references, here's all of this. And so we end up going, I mean, I appreciate that, but what we end up doing is it's like, okay, oh crap, well, he's got another letter over here I've got to go find.
Files.
So, I mean, it's,
All right, we're back to Mr. King. Mr. King.
He works for a hospital corporation. I went to a different place now, but his 4 years, he's an energy engineer for Hospital Corporation of America in Nashville. And he talks about managing multiple vendors for equipment install and commissioning, reviewing submittals, change orders, commissioning new and upgraded building automation systems. But he doesn't work for a PE, but he has 3 co-workers that are PEs that he lists in his references. So it's very, very similar. I'm just not as familiar with, Ricky, you might be, what he might be doing that is progressive engineering experience.
Yes. It's similar to reviewing plans. I mean, when you commission systems, come along in the field though, and put the system through its paces and find out what works and what doesn't. And so there's certainly a whole lot of knowledge about what has been designed, and commissioning is defined as engineering activity, but it's not design. You know, you're really reviewing what somebody's done. So it is a very similar question to what we talked about.
I guess he must have been asked to provide some more information in one of those files. Called Sullivan space 001. It's the second file on our iPad. Second and third page, or the second page of that document is his attempt at explaining his progressive engineering experience. Talks a lot about commissioning. Says he was the project manager for a metering initiative. Do you see that paragraph, Ricky? I'm not familiar with what that is.
I do. That when they're trying to figure out where the energy is being used, and so you don't just have the meter for the whole building.
Okay.
You have a meter for the cooling system,
Okay.
and a meter for the lighting, and different panels. I'd like to see a little bit of design. I mean, it's not going to be a solid dose of design, but it would, what we kind of look for from the TDOT people and that sort of person, that that he's taken some engineering fundamentals and developed something and had to come up with it.
Model law, the definition, under the model law, the definition of engineering does now include commissioning. Virtue of that and his presentation here of commissioning work, does that affect anyone's opinion on what?
I mean, just to give you all, probably scary but brief glimpse inside. that was really where I based my thought process. Was it looked like he was actively involved in the commissioning effort, where they, some of these cases, looked like he was actively doing component selection and taking information. And also went back to my time at Siemens, where process to determine what needed to be done to make it work again. And always took that as engineering, where you have a set of data, you analyze it, and you it looked like he was doing that, and along with the commissioning that we have discussed.
All right. Does anybody have any other information they want to discuss? Next and last, we have Robert reviewing the Watkins file.
Mr. Watkins works for a contractor, and really what I saw from him is he was, basic engineering experience standpoint, he was still a year or two away. Because when you start looking at this, he did surveying and material sampling and testing, safety inspection and quality control, estimated design shop drawing review, inspections, and some project management. But I never saw his experience, I mean, I didn't see his experience go beyond that initial level of what I would say is, it needs to be. It provides some additional information that said that he did shoring, design welding procedures, cofferdams, lift plans, and all that seemed well and good, and like so he was moving in the right arc. But it looked like a lot of the early time had really been spent doing that was my interpretation from his application.
I don't know the applicant, but I know Jerry Britton that he works for. You probably know Jerry too, don't you? I would think he's gotten good engineering experience,
But you also
but I don't, you don't really see it here.
No. I mean, again, that was kind of why I was trying to give the benefit of the doubt on some of these things, because they do some pretty high level stuff over there.
Well, they just redid the Henley Street Bridge and took the whole deck off of it. Somebody had to design that support to hold the forms on.
And it may have been this.
Yeah, I don't know whether he did or not.
It may have been him, and they did the one up on 33 in Cleveland County.
I believe they did the one over Douglas Lake, I-40 over Douglas Lake too, up in Jefferson County or Cott County.
Steve, so they
I would approve him, but that's probably because I'm familiar with who he works for.
more than the content of his
Yeah.
representation. Process, but would this merit an interview or additional information? I mean, the candidates already submitted supplement.
Very unusual for someone to be working for a PE in this industry, and this person is, because
I think my recommendation would be, tell me how much time you've been. Cofferdam projects are not inherently. Bull Run Creek. And all I had to do was to draw 4 lines on a piece of paper and say, here's the typical, do it this way. But,
So what would you like
I
to
would
see
like to
us
see
do?
some breakdown on the days that he did, from May. That we can
Like
get some
that in
pers-
writing then, as
Please.
opposed to a
Please.
interview?
Please.
Okay.
in his letter, he co-op experience, was that in his, anywhere else? He says he works for a,
There was no form that said that he had
Yeah.
co-op, I mean, no,
I didn't find it either, but
Did he get experience?
I don't think he had anything in there that, here's my co-op and it was approved by university, and that's typically what we've looked for.
Look at his transcript. I don't know. That's what I was checking.
Well, if we're saying he's short a little and that was the right kind of experience, that put it all together maybe.
Yes, sir. Get credit, it would have to be at least 2 semesters, correct, Wanda? 3 semesters,
In his
okay.
letter, he said he did that, but it would,
Here's co-op. He got 2 credit hours in the
needs to get,
year's credit for that, but did he describe his experience?
no, if he did, that's what we asked him to do. Give us more detail about some of the engineering design work, particularly for, and the co-op, for both of them.
So Robert, so hopefully this is the last submittal the candidate will have.
I think we would like to see a detail on his co-op experience, number 1. Number 2, taking credit for, specifically, Cofferdam. I think he had some lift design stuff on there. Whatever he sent on his additional, he had several projects listed that he had performed engineering work on.
All the references are attesting to the experience as presented by the. Other comments on Mr. Watkins? So at this point, the consensus, I believe, is that he would be disappointed. Satisfy the application portion of the agenda? Okay. So we can pick back up if Mr. Cawthorn will lead us through the motions again.
Okay. All right, back on the motions for the NCAAS meeting. We've gone through all of the motions on the non-consent agenda. So now we'll start with motions on the consent agenda. Most of these are just routine, minor housekeeping changes, so I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll just bring some of the more significant ones to your attention. There's education, motion number 1, which is on page 3 of the spreadsheet of the motions. Education Committee, motion 1. This amends the continuing professional competency position statement to add emphasis on continuing education mobility and the concept of a national continuing education standard. That's an issue that y'all had asked to discuss at the October retreat, so that's on your agenda. Standardization and uniformity of continuing education standards among states. Also, motion 2 under Education Committee basically changes okay, never mind. I was thinking of a different one. This amends a position statement to clarify that a graduate degree that is used in part or in whole to satisfy education requirements cannot be applied for experience credit toward licensure. So, for example, in our case, if someone's master's degree is used to remedy deficiencies in their undergraduate education, give them a year of experience credit for the master's degree.
So they couldn't double.
I
Doesn't
think this-
disagree with the way our laws read or the way we've been
But I thought
looking
we
at
did.
things.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, doesn't disagree with the way we have.
Well, our laws and rules don't specifically address that situation, but I think the practice of the committee in the past, is this correct, Wanda, has been
Oh, we just put
dipping for
something
that.
in.
Here's what I thought we said. I thought we said yes if. So for instance, if you're going to school full-time masters and you don't have another job, then yes, you couldn't count it. But if, for instance, you're going to get your master's at night and you're working for
Right.
UA,
Then you could do it.
then you
That's
could
a
do
different
it.
issue.
Yeah, that's
a
Is that
different
not
motion.
That's different.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
You're
different.
talking about
Talking
experience.
education requirements only, not,
Right.
I thought this was
Yeah,
education.
this is saying if you give them experience credit
you're-
for the graduate degree, it wouldn't, I'm sorry, if you're using the graduate degree to remedy educational deficiencies, you cannot also use it for experience credit.
actually, it's doing.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, I got you. I see. The degree itself can only be used one time, but if you work during that time, you could count that towards working
Right.
experience. Okay.
Yeah, you could in theory. Okay. Board of Directors endorses that motion as well as the previous one. And that also comes up in a few other motions as well. Under Education Committee, it specifies that experience credit for graduate degrees may be given provided that the degree is not used to meet education requirements. And that appears in motion 3, the next one. In particular, I found motion 3 to be interesting because it's amending the education requirements for licensure. And basically, they removed a section from the model law that states that a master's degree in engineering from an institution that offers EAC ABET accredited programs, they removed that provision, and instead, they've modified an existing provision that says a degree in engineering from an EAC ABET accredited master's program would be an acceptable education qualification. And their reasoning there in removing the part about a master's degree from an institution that offers accredited programs was the committee believes that attainment of a master's degree in engineering without first earning a bachelor's degree in engineering is not sufficient to meet the education requirements for licensure. But if it's from an ABET accredited master's program, that program would is required to fulfill the bachelor's level general criteria for accreditation. So they make a distinction between a non-accredited master's program and an accredited master's program. Yeah, a non-accredited master's program would not necessarily prepare them for professional practice. It wouldn't meet the general criteria necessarily, but an accredited master's program would prepare them. Right, under current, but this will be relevant to a later discussion we'll have when I give you the legislative update. The master's degree bill may be coming back, so.
Well, and I thought this was also an attempt to remedy those schools that were only, very few of them, aren't there, that are ABET accredited at the master's level, but not.
Well, there's more and more, because, for years, the ABET would not allow a school to have both an accredited undergraduate program and graduate program in the same discipline. Now that's been removed, and they can have
Okay.
both.
Is that correct, Chris?
He's an educator, so I was like, is that right? I think that's right, though.
Yeah, I think what you just said was they used to,
Right,
now they can.
yeah.
Yes, that's why.
So more and more master's programs are becoming accredited now. Used to, it was kind of a rare thing to see that. Yeah, it's just a handful of schools, yeah.
Louisville didn't have an undergraduate.
I just thought that was really interesting that they sort of confirmed one of the board's concerns for years, that so many candidates that have that master's degree in engineering are not necessarily being required to go back and remedy deficiencies in their undergraduate education. That's the consensus of this education committee as well, so, unless it's an accredited master's program, so anyways. Present, we could. Motion 4, under Education Committee. Well, we've already discussed that one. Motion 5, this is the controversial one that I think Mr. Campbell's may object to. It's amending the model rules regarding experience to state that experience credit for a graduate degree cannot be earned concurrently with work experience credit. So basically, you can't get to 2 years' experience for 1 year, even if you're working full-time and going to graduate school in the evening. It would not allow you to get 2 years' credit for that. The rationale for that, if you want me to just kind of read some of their reasoning behind it, this is from their committee report. The committee believes that the intent of awarding the experience credit is to help graduate students stay on the path to licensure while continuing their education. In other words, the intent is not to expedite licensure, but rather it is to prevent penalizing individuals for continuing their education. Without the credit, they would not be making progress toward the requisite 4 years' experience. The committee proposes adding language to the model rules to state experience credit for a graduate degree cannot be earned concurrently with work experience credit. In other words, individuals would not meet the experience requirement for licensure if they worked only 3 years while concurrently earning their graduate degree. 4 years of time must pass before eligibility. The committee believes that this represents the way boards already handle graduate degrees. Another argument for the proposed change is that awarding experience credit for advanced education during the same period that design experience is being obtained would be similar to allowing overtime work to count toward the requisite 4 years' experience, and this is not common board practice. So they're equating it to giving them credit for overtime work. That's the reasoning behind it. And the board of directors endorses. Robert doesn't like it.
Again, I go back to, a lot of people have gotten their master's.
And credit for their masters, though, as a year's experience.
I think if you're gonna. I just, yeah, I mean, how many
Does
times is it gonna come up? Probably twice in 10 years.
Does
but
our
still.
statute qualify the
In the rules, as far as I know.
hold your masters in engineering? Get a year's credit. Qualify whether it's concurrent.
No, it just says the
Yeah.
board may grant toward experience requirements for registration as an engineer 1 year of credit for graduation with a master's degree or higher in engineering from an approved curriculum. So it does specify really that it can't be concurrent with experience.
Not really the
Well, it
same
wouldn't
thing.
affect us. This proposed
I know,
language
you
wouldn't
keep coming
affect
back to
us
that, but
under
still.
current statute, so.
Well,
I thought it would have. We,
Well, our rule doesn't specify.
well, then.
It doesn't go
So-
into that level of
logic, we shouldn't
detail.
even
so we
go
could
to
double,
something
we
like
could
that.
double dip.
Yeah.
If we wanted to double dip, we could double dip.
It doesn't specify the accrual period being concurrent. It doesn't address that. You get credit under this, what he just read, you can get credit for your master's while you're getting your work experience. So,
Yeah. I was gonna say, I understand, what Robert and Laura are saying, but on the other side, the,
statute supports what they're saying, is how I'm interpreting it, though.
right, well, right now, the board of directors agrees with, they endorse this motion, right?
Which would not allow it, which is different.
Which would not allow it, and I'm okay not allowing it because the effect is you're gonna require 4 years from a getting a bachelor's degree, and I'm okay with that. I mean, you may have somebody who can do it in 3 years because they got a master's at the same time they picked up. But I would say for public safety, I'm fine making it 4 years and not letting somebody double dip, which is what this is
Well,
saying.
it's interesting because, the model law had in the language that the plus 30, and then we statute as it's written and how we've been applying it as a board,
No, I think that we can pick up a year's experience in the master's program. I'm okay saying that you don't get the year experience with the master's and the year experience work in the same 12 months. I'm okay saying you don't get 2 years in 12 months' time.
You agree with that?
I'm okay, yeah, I agree with them because
that's
it's
not
the-
what they're saying, right?
it's the
You
work,
agree that-
right,
okay,
correct.
okay, I got you.
The worst
Who got
case
to
is,
you, Ricky?
Huh?
Who got to you?
Really?
4 years is, it's just a public safety. In most times, there's nothing wrong with making somebody wait 4 years to become a PE, to take a test.
Somebody make you an offer you couldn't refuse.
One of
Keep
us,
going.
one of us.
No, it's just the whole double dip thing.
All right, Mr. Cothran, please proceed so we can get out of here.
Well, what do y'all want to do with that?
We're
Y'all
gonna
gonna-
vote no.
Yeah.
You're gonna vote no. So y'all are
Gotta
blow
pull it off
Ricky off
consent
and-
to vote,
Robert
though.
just said, we're voting no.
You have to
No.
pull it off consent to vote, so do you feel strongly enough
Oh, that's-
about it to pull it off consent?
Probably not.
No, we don't put those.
Do it, just do it.
So is that,
We'll
Does that-
see. I mean,
does that
again,
mean I
somebody else
win?
may pull it. I mean, that may be a discussion
Yeah,
topic.
if
for
there's a
each other.
groundswell, Robert and I will get on it.
We'll jump on it. I'm a front runner.
So, I wonder though if our rule, that rule perhaps should be amended regarding, whether they would get experience credit if that degree is used to satisfy education requirements. Right now, it doesn't specify even that, so y'all seem to be okay with that if they have to use that master's degree.
Statute doesn't specify that.
Rule right now
The
doesn't
policy-
specify that.
The practice could be what you're saying, I guess, right?
Well,
Save
just-
that for the next board member,
Yeah, I
okay?
thought,
Go ahead.
I could throw that on the October agenda.
That's a
for-
great idea.
All right, I'll do that. All right. ACCA Motion 4, basically this and another motion that appears later, they're just moving the model law engineer, model law surveyor, and model law structural engineer designations out of the model rules and putting them in a policy, which is really where they belong because they're internal designations for council records. So I think that's a positive change, and the Board of Directors endorses that. Also, ACCA Motion 6 adopts a position statement on sustainability, which has been endorsed by the Board of Directors. UPLG Motion 1 on the next page is replacing ABET equivalence language with language saying that non-accredited programs have to meet the requirements of the NCAAS Engineering Education Standard, which is what we use as well. Y'all have deemed that standard to be equivalent to ABET requirements. Motion 4, never mind, we've already dealt with that. That's about those model law designations. And finally, last page, we have the Technology Task Force motions. Hal was on that task force, so Hal, do you want to go through those quickly?
Meeting again, I'm waiting to hear when. Well, I can. I mean, it's basically addressing the advancements of technology as it relates to using us. That's part of it. And then what constitutes or what technologies can be used. Surveying is really impacted by the LiDAR and some surveying, and so there's some qualifying to protect the public interests in the technology and who still should have the authority to seal technologies available that will allow a non-licensed entity or individual to develop a legal that it's still being recommended that it be under the charge of a license. Embracing the technology, allowing it to be used, but allowing it to be used under the authority of a license.
That's it on the motions.
Any comments? Well, good luck to you all that are going. Enjoy. Where is it this year again? In Indianapolis. So are we driving?
Both. Depends on where
Coach
you
or
are.
business?
Southwest and not.
Now, how long is that flight again?
30 minutes.
Yeah, come on.
It's 45 minutes plus they do snacks.
Ooh.
Still quicker than driving, I promise you, hand to God. Now, that doesn't include.
Cheaper or quicker?
It was probably cheaper. I got a really good flight.
They have a sale right
Very
now.
cheap.
Southwest is having a sale.
Yeah, it was like $300 or something.
All right, board or legislative update.
Yes. And just want to let you know, we submitted legislative proposals after the last meeting, and one of those was in regard to the requirement for engineer registration that individuals be certified as an engineer intern. And it was proposed that we amend that to simply say that they require that they pass the FE exam, which is really the intent. That's really all engineer intern certification signifies, is that they've passed the FE exam. So the department was receptive to that proposal. So I think that has a good shot of potentially making it into the legislative package for next year. Also, I've been contacted by the counsel for the Senate Judiciary Committee regarding the master's degree bill that was introduced several years ago. I think back in 2007 maybe is when that was, or 8.
Well, it was 7 for 8 through 12, I think.
Yeah, right.
I think that's
Yeah, to allow master's degrees in engineering to qualify an individual for registration as an engineer. There's a particular applicant who does not meet the qualifications because he has a master's degree in engineering, and I think his bachelor's degree is technology, right? It's a technology degree. He's contacted legislators, and apparently the legislators are interested in potentially pursuing a change to the law similar to what was done back in 2008 to reintroduce that section about master's degrees.
not accepting technology degrees.
No,
but more
only-
specifically the master's.
Right. It's aimed at master's degrees in
And
engineering.
was this an individual, do we know, was it someone who went through the process? Your fault.
Qualify. So, on page 63, you have the language of the bill that was filed back in 2007 or 2008. It's page 63 on your iPads. And this is the language that the council's looking at.
Is she on this too, or do you know?
I haven't contacted her about it. I mean, nothing's been filed yet, obviously, so, it'll, of course. But behind that, on page 64, you do have the rule language that was effective for March 2008 to May 1st of last year. We just, through housekeeping changes, deleted that rule last year. Now we may have to, if this bill passes, we'll have to put it back in. But I bring it to your attention because this has some language that is being amended in Education Committee Motion 3 for the annual meeting that we discussed earlier. The rule language would have allowed master's degrees from institutions with an undergraduate engineering program in the same discipline that was accredited by ABET. And, of course, the Education Committee of NCAAS has determined that those degrees, non-accredited master's degrees, are not adequate to prepare someone for licensure. So I don't know if y'all might want to consider, if the time comes, if that bill passes, may want to look at different language for the rule. I'm not sure, but that's really just for your information at this point, just to ponder. And of course, when this bill was introduced back in 2007, I believe it was. It took effect in 2008. There was an amendment to it that actually set a sunset date, 2012, on it. I don't know if that might be, I don't know if that might be part of this proposal or not. They haven't mentioned that. So really just for your information at this point. But I wanted to bring that to your attention just so you knew that there's a potential for that occurring.
We know that the reasoning behind this bill is for a specific individual, and this individual has a technology degree. Wouldn't it be to our benefit to make it that restrictive if we could? In other words, don't let it apply to somebody that gets a bachelor's degree in English and gets a master's in engineering. Let it only apply to the technology degree with a master's in engineering. Just something to think about. Because if it's just a master's degree, you could have a bachelor's in anything. You could get, all you got to do is convince some school to let you in their master's program and get a degree.
Well, along those lines and what you were referencing too about the education committee recommendation that a master's be accredited as well, and that in their mind, I guess, accounts for any bachelor degree curriculum deficiency, right? So if it gets to that point, to build on Steve's comment, don't disagree, but whoever works on that legislation also consider that option too.
Just not many of those, so you probably, politically, that probably wouldn't fly.
I would agree because in this particular applicant wouldn't qualify if the rule was
Right.
that restricted.
That's my
His
point.
master's program's not accredited, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or wasn't at least at the
So
time he graduated.
if you could limit it to, the accredited technology degree and a supplemental master's degree, that's better than opening it, that narrows it.
But the interesting thing to me is that if the education committee is deeming that the master's has to be accredited to make up for the curriculum deficiency of anything less than a bachelor's program, the whole issue is whether a candidate has the bundle, I guess I'll call it, of curriculum to qualify in equity with any other applicant for licensure. So that, to me, is the crux of it, using that word again. I think could be part of the conversation. So I agree, I understand maybe Tennessee doesn't have any accredited master's program in engineering. Okay.
I understand the point, but, what these legislatures, they're dealing with a specific individual.
Right.
So what we need to try to do is to narrow it as much as possible. Let this guy get what he wants if we think he can get it through committee and he's got the votes, but try to narrow it so we don't end up with what we had before.
I'll bring this up again at the board meeting tomorrow so the full board is aware of it. But this counsel for the Judiciary Committee actually requested that we sent this to you guys, to the board, so
Are we
that's why I'm
supposed to
bringing
tell you
it
that
up.
we're not in favor of it? Do we need to,
I don't-
are you gonna have to, or do you need to send a response back to them saying? we
No,
think
I don't know that I don't think they really asked us to take a position on it. I mean, it's not even a bill at this point. There's just, yeah, they ask, yeah. Well, I've already given the history behind it, at least to the individuals in the department, our legislative staff, so they know the history of it when it was introduced several years ago. No, that's it for legislative updates.
So we
yeah.
can move on to the board visits.
Yes, and on page 65, you have a letter from, I think from Jerry Carter, stating that NCAAS is now reaching out to member boards, and they would be more than happy to pay us a visit at their expense.
I like that part. It won't cost you a dime.
Yeah, business class.
Unless it's more than 5 hours.
Yeah. So, and
What they would do is they would fly from Clemson to New York to Tennessee to make sure it's more than 3 hours.
Business class. I won't be on the board, but just a thought, are you having your dean's meeting next year?
no, we do that normally every other year, so that will probably be 2018 when we have. But we may want to ask them to come earlier to talk about, if we did have further discussions about the exam application process and the changes NCAAS is making in reviewing records, we may want to ask them to come and address that issue potentially along with other issues. Wanted to bring that to your attention in case we want to ask them to Okay, I've been contacted by ABET, and we do have an accreditation visit coming up. This is confidential, so don't spread it around, but I have to bring it up at a public meeting.
On video that everybody can see it.
Well, I can't do anything about that. It's UT Martin. They're having a visit, their EAC accredited program. In October, it's October 23rd through the 25th. So if you want to, if someone's available for that, if you want to designate someone to attend as the board's observer,
No, I'm just kidding.
Seriously. Board member's a new person that's never been through that, that would be good. It is
I
See how
went
that is.
new, and it might help to.
I mean,
I
don't you
felt
have-
like a fish. It was, yeah.
It was, I mean, you
you learned a
learned
lot.
some stuff. Now, you got to sit in the corner and not do anything, but you
I
at
went on
least,
3 in a row, I think,
you at least picked up on some things
Yeah.
that deal with it, so.
with some counsel that.
October 23rd through the 25th. So, yeah.
You'll almost be there. It's about time is our retreat.
About our itinerant member, Mr. Lim, he's not here.
Yeah. I second that motion.
That's his area too, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe it could
So it's
be a
between
good job. What?
Mr. Lim and
Mr.
Ricky then, okay.
Confidentially, it's between you two.
Confidentially, yes, okay. All right, well,
Is that the only ABET
it's
visit
the only one.
for Tennessee
that's-
right now?
that's
Okay. well,
in
that's good.
engineering program. Exam application process. Hal, you missed this, but at our last meeting, we had a visit by the Assistant Commissioner talking about potential changes to the exam application process. You know, for years, we've been approving applicants to sit for exams for all of our professions, except interior design. They never did that. But for the other professions, we've always had them apply to sit for the exam. So the board reviews their record and then authorizes them to test. The department's trying to move away from that, partly to reduce the length of time that applicants have to interact with our department, try to bring that statistic down. Really streamline the process for applicants so they can just go straight to the test provider, take the test, then when they've passed it and met all the requirements, then they would apply to the state for their license or registration at that point. So the department's kind of, you know, encouraging boards, if they're able, to move in that direction. So we had a discussion about that at the last meeting, and y'all had, I think, reasonably requested some more information on that, and I do have some statistics for you.
That's consistent with one of the 3 options that we talked about earlier, right? So
When you said reasonable, does that mean that some of our other requests have not been very reasonable?
No, I just haven't had time to address. Okay, this just gives you a snapshot of all of our open pending engineer exam applications as of August the 3rd, just last week. At that point, we had 529 open exam applications. This is only those that have applied for the exam, not comity or reapplies, certainly not including renewals or anything else. So 529 pending exam applications. And then you see some application codes that show you the status of those applications. Of those, 95 were out for board review. And Wanda's informed me that most of those have come back now, so that number would be a lot lower now. That seems like a very high number, but I think that was mostly Hal.
I hope my successor is better at turnaround.
Yes.
You wore us out for about a month, I'll let you
Yeah,
know.
we've had a lot of applications.
Yes, I thought I was done. I was like,
That's a good
gosh.
thing, we're promoting licensure.
Yeah,
people,
we've
right?
had a lot. Our numbers have continued to increase. Those with educational deficiencies or that were in need of or waiting on an evaluation, that was 23. 332 have been approved to sit for the exam. So that's 63% of our open applications. 32 of them had an experience deficiency and then 47 were incomplete. Maybe they lacked references or other documents or information. So we have 332 at that point in time that were authorized to test. Of those, 27 had applied for the October exam, so they had not, of course, had an opportunity to sit for the test yet. So of the applications that where they had had at least one opportunity to sit, we had 305. Of those, 67, or 22% of that total, had never taken the exam. 37%, 113, have taken the exam once. 125, or 41%, have taken the exam multiple times. Most of those, 74% of those, up to 3 times. Not very many more than 3 times, although I think the most that we had was an applicant who had sat 10 times for the exam. And I thought this was interesting that of that 305, I mean, it's a significant percent that have never even taken the exam. I mean, it's close to a quarter of them. But of those, this 305, 102 or 33% have not sat for the exam in the last year. So you could consider those inactive applications potentially. So that's a full third of them that have not sat within the last year.
So they apply, they sit, they fail.
And just for your information, the average pass rate for the last 5 years in Tennessee, just our candidates, is 51%, which I think is pretty close to the national average too. That doesn't include structural because it has a much lower pass rate than the other exam disciplines. And I think for those that are retaking the exam, the pass rate hovers around 30% usually for those. And at the bottom there, you'll see average application processing times for July of this year. Now, this only includes applications that were approved in that 1 month. All applications approved in July of this year. And for all professions, all types, that would be exam, comedy, reapplies, the average processing time was 136 days. For engineer exam applicants, the average time was 506 days. Wow. And comedy's 57 days. So you see, those exam numbers, that's what really drives our metrics down, as it's called, or drives them up, I guess I should say. It really increases our processing time significantly because they're all lumped together and averaged. Comedy was mixed with exam. So that's partly what's driving this initiative to try to reduce those processing times. So this is just for your information. I thought it's interesting to see those numbers, to see how many candidates are not aggressively taking the exam.
Allowing individuals to approach the testing entity first, is it really going to
Well, I mean, maybe not for the applicant. They're still obviously going to have to
Right.
pass the test.
Well, they got to pass the
But-
test, but then they also have to go through the evaluation of the board member review.
Right, they will. After they
Ah.
pass, they have to apply with us.
It really won't.
Days instead of
Yeah,
50.
it's
550.
anticipated, yeah, that'll be a much shorter period of
I mean,
time.
I think that's the rationale they're using. But
So
still,
you're just evaluating them on their credential for licensure, not eligibility to sit for. It's the same thing presently, right?
But,
I mean, that's,
in this case, so if we change the process, you're not going to ever have to review an application of someone who hasn't passed the exam. Because right now, you're reviewing every exam application, once it's complete, of course.
What's the
for-
difference,
Including
though?
for candidates who may never even take the test.
Because you're still going to get a copy of their transcript, because someone WS going to vet.
They say they will go by our
Right, we can
criteria.
set it. We can specify that they have to have an ABET accredited degree, they have to have passed the FE exam. Yeah, we could set that. And I mean, it would save staff time, it would save you time, you're not gonna have to review applicant test, or just
So I'm
can't
gonna
pass
ask the
it.
legal question, right? We do this. How about this possibly doing interviews in lieu of too, and that would, I mean, so once you've passed it, we'll do an interview maybe, and you don't meet the whatever during the interview, we don't give you a license. And it's similar to this, if we, NCAA says, hey, they've got all the experience they need, they come back to us, after they've passed the test, we review it and say, no, you don't, this experience is garbage, it wouldn't. Are we opening ourselves up then? I know it's our decision, but do we have to come through some other, are we going back to having to have definitions now? Because you see what I mean, we're almost going to have to really have a very finite thing to evaluate them on then.
I understand your concern, certainly. I believe the way that we would draft the rule, so first of all, what the board would be doing in essence is delegating the authority to evaluate solely for examination to this examination administrating entity, right? But the board would have sole discretion, ultimate power for issuing a license. And so certainly mistakes are made everywhere, not that by this board, but,
I mean, but,
you know.
No, but not seriously. That's
But
why
everybody
that's
makes
why we
mistakes,
discussed this, right?
problems do occur, and so this board would be the final gatekeeper allowing or disallowing someone to actually obtain registration. I believe part of the problem right now, from what I've learned sitting with Brian McCormick upstairs and with John, is that right now an applicant has to not only pay, they're going to pay to apply whether they're even going to get admitted to the examination or not, or if they never even pass the examination, they're out that money. And they may never come back. And as you can see from the numbers that John's putting forward, 50% of these people don't ever come back. But they might end up paying to take the exam anyway. And the examination entity, I believe, includes within the cost of administering the examination, assessing their credentials as to whether or not they can actually even take the examination. So one, you're going to save people money. Two, they don't have to come to the board first, and then the board communicate to the NCEES, and then NCE or whoever the administrating entity is, then them communicating to the applicant, then the applicant going and setting up their examination, and then going, and then coming back to us. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth. Right now, what it would be is that they would go to NCEES. They would send all their information there and pay the money, sit for the exam, or not sit for the exam for that matter. And then before it even comes before the board, that's when, all that's taken care of before anyone here even touches it. And then it comes here, and then the applicant will say, oh, here's my stuff. And then you guys might say, 3.5 of this 5 years you have is good. We disagree with what NCEES said. We have this rule that legal counsel drafted that says we have final say. We want you to get 6 more months of experience. You go get that. You come back in here. You're good to go.
That process, have they addressed whether it would include them having to have an having to establish an NCAAS record? Because right now you watch if that does evolve, because then that would be an additional expense to.
Right now, with the models they've proposed, approval models, I don't think there's any experience evaluation that's occurring. Eventually, they may go in that direction, at which point you would have to have some sort of a record established. I don't know at this point what cost might be, if any.
So that might be a question.
Yeah.
Y'all go to council.
Closer to what Robert's talking about is maybe not wait 6 months question, but you know what? You've got a technology. Give somebody that kind of answer and they have passed the PE test,
They shouldn't be allowed to sit.
They should have never been allowed to sit.
NCAA is supposed to be
mistakes,
education.
many states allow technology degrees. Mistakes are made. They pass the test. You know, I mean, it would be easy to see that. I find that having a different flavor on Robert's question is, have we set the board up in?
I don't think so, for a variety of reasons. One, it's pretty clear. It's ABET or not ABET. If you're ABET, you're fine. If not, then you have to be certified as sufficiently qualifying, right?
Technology programs that are ABET accredited, so you
But
have
they're
to.
taking the test.
They are registered in other states with a technology degree. And when
Say no. Okay, well, I can only speak from personal experience because I'm not an engineer. I've not gone through this process. I'm not very familiar with it. However, I do serve as counsel for the County Board. They do this through AICPA and NASBA, and the folks at NASBA and AICPA have every single state's qualifications, and they run it through those qualifications every single time. And I have not come across this experience, a problem with this. Now, granted, that's a completely different organization. But I think in part because of accountancy doing it this way, I mean, their turnaround time from application to issuing a license is 4 days. Different.
Yeah.
It's different. So it's kind of like comparing, apples and oranges. However, it is 4 days, and I do know that things come to them in this nice, neat little bundle because of NASBA and AICPA pre-vetting these individuals for their examinations.
I'm not opposed, and I'm not necessarily for. I just think we really need to think, because at the end of the day, we do vet their experience now. But we've always kind of had the philosophy of, okay, well, if we kind of make a little bit of a mistake on the experience, we've got the exam to. Ultimate, then it could bring the disagreement that we might have as well. From a semi-liable situation where they're saying, well, you approved my friend who's got almost the same. So anyway, I'm not opposed. I think it's a great idea, but I mean, I think we really need to vet this as a board to.
I mean, I certainly understand. I think with regard to any sort of a liability issue, you'd have to, we'd be able to say, well, did this administrating entity actually abide by our law and rules as they have been instructed to? Because we are delegating them the authority to do that. If they did not do that, then that's not necessarily going to be on the board. And if we draft the rules in such a manner, we will be drafting rules for the architects and landscape architects. I'm going to mirror some proposed rules just for us to look at, because I think they should be uniform across throughout all of the rules that we have. In that there should be a catch-all at the end, and it says, so be it that you were admitted by the administrating entity, we have the final say. The board has the final say to approve or disapprove your experience. So although they may say that it's sufficient experience, we might say that this does not qualify. But that person then is even that much closer to getting licensed, right? Because they've already passed the exam, and now they're going to know they have 6 months, 3 months, a year, or whatever it is, and then they're good to go.
Licensing agreement with the Japan PEFE Examiners Council. I have gotten some feedback from a couple of their officers about the proposed agreement. That begins on page 66 on your iPads. This is the agreement. You've seen this before. It was drafted by a previous legal counsel several months ago, and we sent it to JPEC for review. They had several questions. The main hang-up they had was with the experience requirement, that they had to have at least 1 year experience that's completed in the United States. That's their main issue. That's straight from our rules. So I think to change that, we would have to amend our experience rule for engineers, adopt some other wording that could potentially address the concerns behind that requirement, but would not necessarily require that they obtain that experience in the United States. An option that they proposed was to require at least 1 year experience in the U.S. or a certain number of years working experience with U.S. firms in fields such as an engineering alliance corporation, export-import of engineering related to, from to U.S. firms. I'm just reading what they wrote here, that would require close experience and insight of the U.S. engineering field, so that they're proposing that that maybe be amended so that their applicants would not necessarily have to come to the U.S. to obtain acceptable experience. Right, it's taken straight from our experience rule for engineers. The same requirement would apply to Canadian applicants as well. I don't know that it's ever been an issue.
Okay. But so
I guess
as
the
you-
potential exists. That was their main issue, and they are going to have a representative in attendance at the NCAAS annual meeting in Indianapolis that's going to want to meet with us just to discuss the agreement with them. And as I mentioned, they had several other questions too that they may want to discuss with us. But no action needs to be taken on it at this point. But I think likely we may have to amend that particular rule in question about experience before they might be willing to sign the agreement with us. Maybe not.
Goes back to what we are both trying to do.
Their concern was we would just see very few applicants from Japan if we required 1 year of experience in the U.S. It just wouldn't not apply to very many.
What's one of the reasons we were looking at this is German and Japanese,
Yeah, but
with firms that might well need.
But what kind of started us down the path, if you remember, was that it's kind of a status symbol.
To have a PE license from the U.S., right?
So again, we need to decide kind of what more of the purpose of the deal.
And why is that in the statute in the first place, the 1 year's experience?
Rules?
Yeah.
It's been-
I mean,
I think
Barbara
I've,
just said it's been there forever.
Well, no reason is,
It's been there a long
we did it
time,
for
yeah.
foreign applicants. We did it for, no. I think it's been there forever because we want to make sure that foreign applicants understood the work environment of the United States if we're
okay.
going to license them here. And that's, I say forever, I think that's passed down from NCAAS and.
intent's just to make sure they're familiar with our codes and requirements, et cetera. But I think it could be accomplished potentially with some wordsmithing that may not require them to necessarily be in the U.S. That's what JPEG's proposing. Well, I did contact the Association of Energy Engineers. I've contacted them twice about potentially sending someone to discuss the certifications that they offer. And I have not heard back from them at this point, so I'm going to I've been dealing with the Middle Tennessee chapter of the Association of Energy Engineers, so I think I'm going to contact the national organization and see if y'all are still interested in pursuing that, and see if maybe they can have someone that could come and speak to us about their certifications. Mr. Lim, I think, had some concerns about some of their certifications potentially crossing the line, maybe.
And he may have, it seemed like there was the fact that they used the word engineers in their title. Started thinking about, when I saw this on the agenda, that there are other organizations like that, many.
CPAS.
I mean, can you be a member of ASCE without being a PE?
Oh, yeah.
And you can,
Oh, no, ASC,
ASCE.
ACEC.
no, not ACEC.
Oh,
ASCE.
I don't know.
I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
you
you
can,
can.
you can,
Yeah.
yes, you can, you
It's
can.
same with ASHRAE, heating and refrigeration, air conditioning engineers. You don't have to be licensed to be a member of these organizations with engineer in their name. So we just need to understand that it's not just, if that's what our objection is, we've got,
His objection was they are offering engineering services and they're not licensed. Place these light bulbs, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
They were now going into a lot of other engineering related energy fields that,
so I think in that case, a dialogue about what requires a licensed engineer and what doesn't.
be nice to have Mr. Lim here to talk about that every once in a
Where is
while.
You got a scheduling conflict.
Yeah, right.
Well, I hope this time at
I mean-
UT Martin will tell you
That's
to
right.
teach him otherwise.
It's not like this hasn't been on the calendar for a year.
Not really. Yeah, I look ahead.
It's probably a meeting with TVA. That's his usual excuse.
All right, anything else on that? All right, at the end of the agenda, I just want to say this is my last committee meeting, and I've enjoyed working with everyone on this committee, and I appreciate the work that you all do and the benefit to the public health and safety. So it's been a pleasure, and I to you all anytime. So thank you for.
Al, thank you. We really appreciate your leadership, and we don't even have to vote on that, but will you still be in charge of the Christmas party, please?
We'll see, yes.
Otherwise, Philip's in charge and we're in trouble.
I have a photograph to share.
Two buried somewhere.
Hey, John.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, you're on.
All right.
We skipped over an audit.
I'm sorry. Well, let's do
Mr. King
that.
was
My
reviewed.
apologies. Mr. King, it's the
Hey, I have a continuing education audit from the registrants of professor at MTSU, and requesting 140 hours for the design of a lean system curriculum for the Tennessee Valley Health System. It just didn't seem like engineering at all to me. And when I talked to John about it, he suggested maybe we talk about it.
It's not an engineering curriculum. It's a something.
I can't tell that it is.
What are they seeking?
He got a grant from Department of Veterans Affairs, and he's trying to claim this as his continuing education. Did a summary of it. It just didn't seem like engineering to me.
I mean, even people we have that do publications and stuff, it's generally for a technical paper that get credit for that, right? It's technical paper or presented at a technical conference. I mean, this doesn't even sound like it's an engineering.
Oh, well, this, I don't know if, I don't know what this is.
If you
I'm
think
just
of it as a
confused.
publication curriculum, isn't there a limit, Ricky?
5 PDHs, I
Yeah.
believe, per
Yeah.
publication.
I think 25 at the most you could give him.
Hours too, right? In addition to that.
Yeah, he did.
How many?
There would have been another member that got this to review, wasn't there, besides me?
I don't think it's been. That one's been sent to anybody else.
Well, I guess my inclination was to not approve it. That's sort of what I told John on the phone, but maybe we ought to talk about it, but I guess if I don't approve it, it'll go to a board member, then they can get this package. Okay, all right.
Yeah, Philip.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
let Philip look at it.
Philip would be good, yeah.
Philip would be good to look at it.
He's passionate about.
Okay, is that the last item of business then? All right, then we are. That would happen, June.
Right on time.
Randy said it's stress. I was like, I don't think so.
we may be able to sneak
I
off.
know,
Yeah, 'cause
seriously.
even if we played
They haven't called me back though. That's
Because you were
stressing me
expecting
out.
to see
Yeah,
Architectural and Engineering Examiners is taking place in Room 1B of the Davy Crockett Tower at 500 James Robertson Parkway in Nashville, Tennessee. And notice of this committee meeting was posted on the board website on August 1st, 2016. Roll call.
Susan Ballard,
Here.
Philip Lim, Bill Lockwood, Frank Waxter,
Here.
Susan Maynard.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements that we need to make, John? Okay, all right. I'd like to welcome Blair to our meeting today, and tomorrow he'll be in our board meeting, and so we'll be assigning committee assignments at that time. And Mr. Whiteley, thank you for attending, even though you don't have to. We appreciate your input from time to time. Again, thank you for your time. We're here today to go over, hopefully, the final draft of our Special Grants Committee proposals. And John has given you the updated copies. I happened to print mine out before I left, so mine is in blue, so I know where the changes were, just to kind of
okay.
help. Have you got a blue one, John, or a red one?
No.
Okay,
But
all right.
if you have the black and white copy,
Yeah.
it'll be underlined and should
Right.
be obvious.
Yep. So, moving on to the initial paragraph, this is part of the standard information that has been in our grant proposals. And Blair, just for your knowledge and information, we have a grants committee within the board, and we have funds that we allot, that we give to the schools that are covered under our board based on a mathematical formula of enrollment. And so we have some extra funds this year that we wanted to give to the students and to the schools based on a special project. So that's what we're here to discuss today, okay? So looks like we've updated the date to July 1st of each year. And that the portion of the grants appropriation will be designated by the board, which will be part of our committee, and then we make recommendations to the board. These funds may not be used towards staff salaries, administrative costs, et cetera. And then the other change on this is in addition to the grant funds set aside for purposes described above, the board will designate a portion of the funds to be used for special projects as further described below. And then we've got listed the eligible universities and different accreditation programs. And then moving on to the second page, we have submission of proposals. And under this, we have established that a deadline will be determined by the board. And that being the case, we don't know how flexible our schedule needs to be based on other things that may be pressing for the board. So we'll establish that each year. And I don't think there are any other changes. Page. And
That section applies only to the
yeah,
current
right.
grants where they go
Yeah.
for equipment, library resources, exam fee,
What we do every.
ones we've been
Not
doing,
the extra
right?
money, okay.
Then we have a new section for special
Yes,
projects.
okay. So moving on to the third page, which y'all haven't read. Submission of proposals, special projects, and then we added undergraduate only, and I think that was one of Philip's requests. But then John and I talked about it. Am I looking at two different things? Because I
Yeah,
think we
you're
talked
looking
about
at- I
graduate.
think the one
Yeah,
that
let me
Jude's
get you yours.
Marked up.
'Cause we
Yeah, I
talked
took
about
it
that.
off of this one that I handed out, based on our discussion that you felt that graduate students
Well,
could be
and here's why,
included.
my thought is, if they started as a junior, rising senior, and it's an 18-month program, they're gonna be in graduate school, or they're gonna be out of school. And so it being an 18-month special project, we need to give them time to do that. Would you like to chime in, Mr. Wiley? That seem reasonable?
Well, it wouldn't apply
Okay,
to graduate students,
okay.
but,
Do you feel like you could do a program in 18 months on a special project?
yeah, I think we could do it in,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, and that's part of the proposal, is to tell us your time frame. So, but we wanted to set a limit on it so that we could see the results. So, okay. All right, so moving on, the intent of the special grant funding program is for students of architecture, engineering, landscape architecture, and interior design to collaborate on a special project. The University of Memphis Department of Architecture and the University of Tennessee College of Architecture and Design have agreed to collaborate with other institutions that do not have an architecture or landscape architecture program to allow for other engineering and interior design programs to create teams for this grant. Out what we're saying, because when I've talked to people, they seem a little confused. Does it seem clear enough to you all, what we're saying? I think it does. You're an outsider, Blair, okay, all right. So, because I actually had one person call to find out if construction engineering would be qualified, and I said, well, only if they're under a PE program with our, department, and they said, well, no. And I said, then that's not a third party, so, okay. Eligible programs desiring to seek a special project grant from the board will submit a written request by a deadline determined by the board to the attention of the board's executive director. Programs that do not submit requests by the established deadline may be excluded from the grant distribution. Should we say maybe or will be?
You wanna give yourself leeway, you say maybe. Them,
It's gonna fall under
Could
your
be
lap. What
extenuating circumstances that may delay it, I don't know.
do you think, Ben? I'm more cut and dried. Here's the deadline,
Exactly. I know in a lot of grants, if you miss that deadline, if it's 5 o'clock and you submit it at 5:05, you're done.
I don't want to make it so hectic and crazy and, well, they did this and they did this. I just want to be clean, cut and dried. So you tell me what's the best way.
I would tell, and we write things legally,
Okay,
because if they don't submit it by then, they're out.
okay,
Will is kind of like a hope.
okay.
We'll do that.
So if we, if we say the word shall, then that covers us? Shall be
So if
excluded.
they say shall and we say 5 o'clock Central Standard Time on September 30th, that's the deadline.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay,
And if they
so,
don't submit it by then,
They're
okay.
disqualified. They
So
can do next time.
shall is the better word. Okay. Is that all right, John? Okay. All right. Okay. I just, don't want somebody dragging it out 2-3 days later. Oh, I'm sorry, my cat, had kittens or something. I don't know. But anyway. The project submittals are required to have a minimum of 3 disciplines on each team in any combination of architecture, engineering, landscape architecture, and interior design. Multiple engineering disciplines are also allowed, and I remembered what I wanted to say. I think we need to add a sentence in here that only programs that are under our jurisdiction, if you want to call it that, that's really not the right word, are eligible, because it goes back to the person calling me asking me about the construction engineering. It's not a PE discipline. So that's what I think we need to clarify, that it's only disciplines, or any for that matter, because there are architecture, engineering, other things that people may, yeah, Okay, so can we put something that clarifies it has to be under our,
That eligible program section that would apply to any grant.
okay, but see,
Specifies it has to be.
my example is
EAC,
UT
ABET.
Chattanooga has a construction engineering program that is not under the jurisdiction of our board, okay? I don't know, but, you know, it's not something that they could get a PE license under, so that would not be the third party, so to speak, the third group. Explained it to this person, they understood. I said, you're gonna have to go get a landscape architect or an architect to be your third person on your.
It's not ABET accredited.
Okay.
They don't have a construction engineering
Okay.
program. I would think it would be excluded based on the eligible programs section.
So, let's say we get a submission and they've got a group in there that's not.
So that, in a non-accredited program?
Well, just like the construction engineering program, okay, it's not, if she hadn't called me and asked me that question, and I hadn't been able to say, no, it's not because some people may not call and ask those questions, you know, so do we want to clarify it that much more, or am I going overboard, and y'all can say so?
CETA,
Or,
LEAB accredited programs.
well, are we
Clearer
going,
you can make it.
yeah,
I think the more clear you can make it, even in this part,
yeah,
the easier it's gonna be cases. When we don't accept it or eliminate somebody, we gotta be able to say exactly why.
right,
And they
Is it-
can't come, you know.
yeah. Are we going overboard, Ben, or am I? This is our first shot at this. I want it to go as smooth as possible, and it may not, but I'm gonna give it a
Yeah. We're gonna try.
college try, you know.
We're on the second complete paragraph.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think
Now, on page 1, can we reference to eligible programs?
I think granted, this isn't.
Right.
Law, so if you use it elsewhere within the same document, it refers to those. I think so.
It'll go back to his first page.
Okay.
Starting the school tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm not going to.
Should we,
Then you could say, well, Ben, you're not one of these, and these are the eligible programs. It's quite clear.
okay, should we put it in parentheses, eligible programs?
And the second
Yeah.
sentence,
Yeah, good. Is,
let's say programs that do not submit requests.
the first sentence, eligible programs, should we have that?
I think you just leave it to say that. I think you're fine.
So
Okay.
that means it has to
Eligible
do this. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
All right. Okay, I just wanted to, that was the thing I remembered last night, and I didn't write down before I went to bed, and so today, it's like, okay, okay, all right. Let's see. Moving on then, applicants must explain how the percentage of each discipline will participate in the program, in the project. For contractual purposes, one institution must administer the project, and John had added that, and I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. Yeah,
You want to write the checks and.
right. We'll let them fight over
Cleaner.
who's gonna get what. We're just gonna deal with one person,
Right.
so, okay. All project submittals will be presented anonymously with a code to mark each submitted page for judging. All submittals will be sent to the board's executive director for tagging of each code number. The application will have all necessary identifying information which will be secured by the board's executive director. The grants committee will not see the application page, only the coded submittal information. Is that clear? Okay. We don't want to know who's submitting because many of us have gone to school within the state. We want it to be amount of grant funds available for special projects and the number of recipients will be determined annually by the board. For fiscal year 2017, the grant will be available for 2 recipients in the amount of $20,000 each. Teams can be formed from multiple colleges with a common program goal, which is what we're really hoping will be the only landscape. They need to work with people in Memphis. They need to work with other programs across the state. Suggested topics include, but are not limited to, research and development, community service, energy conservation, zero carbon output, and then Philip wanted EPA, so I put that in there. Historic preservation, low income, human resources, poverty, educational needs for the community, recreational needs for the community, other projects fulfilling a need in the community, and then health, safety, and welfare of the public. And Philip had asked us to add that one as well. Are there? That's just a list.
The reason I asked that, the chances of
It's not gonna be easy to do what we gotta do.
determine which is important, which is not.
Part of it is gonna be, how many applications do we get this first go around, you know?
Couple hundred.
Oh, don't say.
Can't be that bad. Just to make
I
it.
don't have time to clean my house now, so. You know, this is a first go around, so
I know, we're just.
based on something,
Well, especially since it says not limited to.
right,
So if somebody comes up with something.
right. So, but these are just suggested program topics.
Limited to this.
Well, that's the way we've got it listed, suggested program topics, you know,
It's only suggested.
yeah.
It's not mandated.
So,
Actually.
do we wanna talk about that?
Limit it to these. I mean, this covers.
that was my,
Because we want to help the creativity.
right, that's what we don't wanna squelch.
Give them suggestions.
We had done this 10 times, then I might
I
argue
would
with
be-
that. Because we haven't, it's,
Because like you say, somebody may come up with something just super. And the rest of these are maybe mediocre.
yeah. I don't want to squelch the creativity that we're hoping that the collaboration will, you know, accomplish. So from an intent for the grant funding will be used on a project within the state of Tennessee, and that was one of our esteemed board members' recommendations, so we put that in there. Special project funds may not be used to pay intern development program fees or examination fees for students. The project timeframe is 18 months from the receipt of funds. And John, would that be like May or June of next year, once all this is done?
I would assume, yeah, everybody will have their funds by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, all right, because somebody will ask, so I'm just kind of, okay. Award winners will make a presentation to the board by the end of the project. Project updates may be requested at intervals determined by the board.
I do have one thing.
Well, why don't we say project updates? Okay. Will be required, shall be. Thank you. All right,
Required quarterly?
shall be required.
Already. They don't have to show up, they just have to report.
Right.
They could show up, they don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to submit all that with their proposal, so. No. Hey, where's my stopping going
Yeah,
there?
really. That's to say, they're gonna take $3,000.
Oh.
Shall be submitted to the executive director.
At least 1 week prior.
I'll just, you know,
We're
do
moving
hard
pretty
copies
fast,
to hand out.
so, all right. The point system. For judging will include the following criteria: collaboration of 3 or more disciplines, demonstration of need, presentation of project concept, presentation of work plan and budget, impact on the community, educational value to students, transferability and usability outside an academic setting, impact on public health, safety, and welfare, and then matching funds as a bonus. So, Susan had come up with a nice little chart that's right here in the back. Collects all of these and has a little more explanation.
Yeah.
You want to go to that part right now? Let's see. So,
Protect us, if it is gonna be anonymous, we can just put our numerical value, so it's in a matrix.
Yeah.
And each, we'll. I keep looking, since I've been through this on a business end of it, I wanna make sure when you have the people who didn't get the grant, when they come, you can, you can pull up the scorecards and say, this is exactly what happened. That should be
Maybe
anonymous
provide-
too.
I
that's
thought
just the grant committee.
Just for tracking purposes, I mean, it would kind of help me to, I could glance through them and see, oh, yeah,
More than one will
I was
evaluate.
wondering if I should leave it on there, or
I
we
think
could
so.
redact it if we have to provide it. too.
And I think more than one of us should look at it.
Oh, yeah, we all have to do
Yeah.
it together.
Oh, okay, good. I was gonna say, no, don't just give me one.
We're just gonna have the
Yeah.
best time in October.
That's right.
But I do
It'll
think
be
we need to
fun. Yeah.
assign a point value to each one.
Yeah.
And do y'all wanna do that right now?
I don't mind.
I think,
Where's the, okay.
I think impact on the community, should
Are we saying all
weigh,
this will equal 100 points?
Yeah.
100%? Okay.
yeah. This is what our grading is to the applicants, what the percentage of. I think it'd be fair, you know, to know that we're gonna give a higher percentage, and this is my opinion, on impact on the community, but maybe less on something else. I don't, they're all important, so.
Yeah. Well, like transferability
Ability,
is important. All important.
they're all important. That's the problem.
I think the last one's most important.
Yes. charged with. So,
99.
Yeah. 100%.
Blair, you will hear till you're sick in the face. We're here for the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So, anyway. Okay, well, shall we go back to this? Let's get through the rest of it, and then we'll spend, because I know you all want to be out of here by 5 o'clock, right?
I can go all night.
I never leave the office before 9 or 10, so I'm used to this, but you all are state employees, so it's a little bit different. So, anyway. Okay, well, let's go back then to review of proposals by the board. What, whining?
That brought on some grumbling.
That brought us some grumbles.
Hey, I'm not begrudging the fact you all have all these wonderful benefits and vacation.
3 years of 16-hour days, 6 days a week.
Yeah. I get you.
Yes.
Well, when you start your own company, you're in the same place too, so, anyway. Okay, review of proposals by the board, a grant committee appointed by, I'm sorry, underneath our list, right here. I went back. I'm sorry. A grants committee appointed annually by the chair of the board will review submitted proposals and make recommendations for the full board for disbursement of grant funds. Recommendations are to be finalized, acted upon no later than December board meeting of each year. Following approval by the board of amounts, if any, to be expended to each program, designated members of the board staff will draft the appropriate grant contract documents for review and approval by designated reviewing and approved authorities. And then you've taken out those authorities because, okay,
What's called a subrecipient monitoring plan that the comptroller's office was involved with, that we don't have to do.
The grant is awarded today.
Under general services now, contracts review, but yeah, it has to go. After July, they would be notified. that-
20,000 for this $40,000?
They would be select.
We'll have the money probably by March.
I'm
That's
hoping
what I'm
for.
trying to figure.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of schools,
we would really start in fall of 2017 as far as the,
Try to disperse the money by the end of the fiscal year, so.
which is June 30th. Yeah.
To be out of your book, off your books.
Right.
Yeah, in their hands.
Oh,
so go over that again real quick.
okay. So we're going to send this out.
What's the process? I apply.
Problem with that? Okay.
When does
They
it go
would have
out?
to accept. I
Immediately.
assume, and
December board meeting, yeah. That's for this year. Now, in the future, we could go back to where the money could. Later than December.
I can even see this being a special class with a different ID number that they would get credit for, like a different studio, architecture.
We don't have room at Lipscomb to do something like that.
Okay. It would be a substitution for our other class, you know.
Yeah, I envision.
Okay,
Or an engineering missions.
okay. Everybody good with that? Okay. So John, once we send this out, this goes out with the grant applications that we get in October. Okay. 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 So we can meet at the retreat to review? Okay, all right.
I don't think they would,
Okay.
that would give enough time to put anything
Okay.
together, I would think, would it?
You think you're gonna be able to send this out, is what she's saying?
Oh, okay, yeah, I could do it very quickly after this meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go out, let's say by Monday, worst case, yeah. So, they know it's coming, it's for the regular stuff, so. So the special grants portion, we were thinking end of October. Want to do it in two parts or one part? I guess that's,
I'd rather do it all together
okay,
myself,
all right.
but.
From an administrative standpoint, that's in your court, okay? So. Well, we have an annual grant, and then we had extra money that we wanted to give back to the students. This is our first time doing this, so that's why we're trying to come up with all the.
Equipment, it's been, like last year, it was like 300.
Simply because it's a whole new process, so we wanted to give them time to do what they needed to do, but still put a limit on how much time it would take. And we've got in here, as we go through the other parts of the questions, how long will your project take? See that your project could take more than 18 months, and we're gonna say no. So please say no. Sure.
Review of proposals by the board, I would insert.
How they're gonna get it.
Okay.
And if you wanna make, you know, and, I just think like if you're gonna.
So they're not using
Thank you,
point
Ben.
systems, then we just like their work. Yeah.
Okay.
I would add, evaluate each submission based on the point system for
Okay.
special projects, because there's still gonna be the equipment
Right.
grants as well that we've been doing, where there's not in the.
There's a mathematical formula, Blair, that's been set up. That's how we disperse those funds. So, okay. You got that, John? Got your notes? All right. Thank you, Ben. That's a good suggestion. Following approval by the board following approval by the board of amounts, if any, to be expended to each program, designated members of the board staff will draft the appropriate grant contract documents for review and approval by designated reviewing and approval authorities. Is that good? Does that seem a little wordy, or is this because I can't read it well enough? Okay. But does it say what we need it to say? So. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Otherwise, it would be a designated.
Okay.
If it's singular, or just designated first.
Administering grant funds. Grant funds will be awarded upon completion of the contract process based upon the amount approved by the board. A closing report should be submitted utilizing an inventory control report to the board office as determined by the board. The inventory control report must include the following information. This doesn't apply to special grants, or does it?
It does.
It does, okay, all right. Because part of what we were going through the last few days was what applies to us and what doesn't, and so we had to make some clarifications.
A lot of both the equipment
Okay.
grants and special projects.
Okay.
We both, for both of those, we need documentation.
Yeah.
of the purchase.
Okay. An itemized list of equipment or supplies purchased, the accredited program for which the equipment supplies were purchased, actual cost of the equipment supplies, property tags if applicable. A copy of the invoices for the respective equipment or supplies purchased should accompany the inventory control report. If grant funds are utilized to pay intern development fees or examination fees, documentation of these payments should also be provided. Now, I think we had back earlier that they were not going to be included for special grants, okay? Because the IDP program, and Susan, you're not familiar with it, I don't know if you are, Blair. This is the program that the students go through to get ready to take the examination, and there are fees associated with that, and the schools sometimes help pay for those, okay?
But that could not be used, this could not be used.
Not
for that.
special
Okay.
grants, okay? Now, we encourage, the schools to help the students as much as possible, and some of them do, some of them don't.
By the way,
That word, we're using the word purchased should accompany the inventory.
Well, as I have to. Right, Ben?
yes, yes.
It shall be shall.
All wills will go.
Okay,
May not would be shall not.
okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, Frank?
So find and
The,
replace.
The NCARB has revised development program, and now it's called the AXP, which is architectural.
Like, after I read all this stuff that you all have, now they've changed the name. So the
Well-
ARP.
I think we probably need to keep it as is, though.
ARP.
Oh, I'm not saying to change this, I'm saying
Well,
that joke.
the interior designers have an IDEP
Yeah,
program.
we have an IDEP,
It could
yeah.
apply to that too,
Right.
potentially, so.
Right,
They haven't changed their name
This is a generic.
yet.
okay. We will probably one day have to change it. So anyway. If the terms of the grant contract are not met by stated deadlines, the program will forfeit the grant money allotted to them for that year. Programs receiving funding for special projects will be required to make a presentation to the board at the end of the project. Special project funds may not be used to pay intern development fees and/or examination fees for students. So that is what we have on the original of instructions that we need to go through quickly. We ask them to please carefully read the criteria below. If you have any questions, to contact John. They cannot contact any of us. If someone does, please tell them to send them to John. The intent of the special grants funding program is for students of architecture, engineering, landscape architecture, and interior design to collaborate on a special project. I think I'm rereading the same. Okay, good. So then let's skip over to application form. Is that all right? Skip over one more page. Now, does this even need to be in our stuff? You think? Yeah.
I think the scoring
The
criteria
application, yeah,
they might be interested in, I don't
Because
know.
now, like this page,
I think the application page needs to be, because that's what you're gonna send, and they're gonna send back to you to get their number to put on their
This
documents.
right here, we won't see,
Right.
right?
Right, you won't
Right.
see that.
We won't see that, okay.
Right.
We
Yeah.
need to see what it looks like, yeah.
Exactly. So the application, and I had taken this from a Nancy thing and kind of modified it that we had gotten, that Susan had. Date of application, the project title, participating institutions and programs, project leader's name, contact information, including email and postal address. I think they had social security numbers on theirs too, but we don't want that. In an attachment, without identifying information, please write a summary of the project, a minimum of 1,000 words. Please describe your project, including but not limited to the title, scope, goal, description of the plan, and how the project will proceed from beginning to end. Listing of disciplines involved in the project and percentage of work in each category. And that being like, if the engineers are gonna do 30, and the architects are gonna do 30, and landscapes are 20, and interior design is 20, that's what I'm looking for, okay?
I got a question.
Okay.
Minimum of 1,000 words or maximum of 1,000 words?
Well, I just had to write a design, concept statement for a project that was 141,000 square feet, and they wanted it in 500 words. You can't do it in 500 words.
Originally, it had 500 words
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
I changed it to 1,000
Yeah.
for that reason.
And you just
Minimum.
can't.
So they-
Can't say much. yeah.
But we don't have a maximum amount? It's like somebody could send us like a 30-page? If it's that thick, we don't even look at it, right?
From a grant perspective, what, you see them.
Everything I've ever seen, there's not been a minimum, a minimum, but there's been a maximum.
Maximum.
So you don't get this, and people have to think. When I think of a minimum, I think of going back to essays I wrote in high school, and a lot of A's and very, very, very much, and
Well,
so.
I want to give them enough room to describe what they
Right.
want to do. So would say maximum of 5,000 words, or, you know, I don't know what it's going to take to really do it. Because it was 1,000 words on that one page, and I could squeeze in a size 10 font
Well, yeah, 'cause
to do it, you
Because
know.
if you, I think you need to
Yeah,
do a maximum.
okay.
And I think 1,000 is not enough. But exactly, somebody will show up with every, pardon?
I usually use a maximum when I'm asking for
Yeah, so, but what would you think a maximum would be to be fair?
like 2,000 maybe or 25.
They should be able to, I mean, if somebody's
Right,
putting down a
that-
concept
okay.
of what they want to do, they should be able to be concise. Not a legal document. We don't have to have whereases and therefores in it.
That's right.
So 2,000 seems reasonable to you as an educator? Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
We're fine.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
put a lot of thought.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't think-
and it's 200 words, you're like, all right, like.
Yeah.
Well, so with
Right,
yeah, but I don't see you needing to do that.
I
okay.
don't think we need to do a minimum, but I think we do need to put a maximum.
Between 1,000.
Yeah.
No, no. We'll just say a maximum of
And because-
2,000.
but If they want me to be able to read it, a 12-point font, oh,
Well,
no,
yeah.
I'm kidding about that. but-
We'll make John do that for us. Because, I mean, really, if you describe your plan and how it will proceed from beginning to end, and then who all's involved, we need to give them
Well, the
space to
who all's
do that.
involved is gonna be in the cover page.
Yeah, well, that's just part
Yeah,
of their description,
yeah.
so. Their budget, their value to
Yeah.
the community and the impact, and so, anyway, I think we need to give them enough.
Yeah,
We
I
want,
think so, too.
if they do 2001, I'm not gonna penalize them, okay?
Well, no, I think if we put a maximum, we need to be strict with it.
Are you gonna count the words?
I'm not.
Okay, there you go.
I don't know if I'm getting a Word document where I can do a word count, so.
If it's 50 pages long, we know they
Yeah.
blew it,
So
okay.
2,000.
Grant recipients were required to submit a closing report and make a presentation within 18 months. So, the final presentation shall be a maximum of 10 pages or 5,000 words or 1 hour.
That's final, okay.
Is that okay? Is that too much? Is that enough?
No, that's fine.
Okay. A maximum of an hour,
That's
okay? Okay. All right. The estimated date for final presentation submission is, well, they'll let them fill that in. If you are unable to make that date, please explain why. And then this was something that was in the ANSI number 7, statement of endorsement is required from your dean or program director.
Would
So-
that be if they're two or three different universities, all three of them?
I don't, do we need that? I think that's my question, because this was to students. Okay, let's get rid of it then.
On
Okay.
item 6,
Why they can't do it
print
in
the
18 months?
submission date.
Now, yes, because if they can do it in 12 months instead of 18, that's fine.
Reads like you're saying you put a date and then you can't do it by that date.
Okay.
The way it reads.
All right. All right, so,
If the estimate 18 months, tell us why. Is that the purpose of it?
mhm.
That's-
Have to, okay, College of Architecture in Memphis and Knoxville have agreed to team up with other universities. So they are our point of contact for those collaborative groups. It doesn't mean that UT may not have 6 teams going on, or Memphis may have 3 or 4. It just depends on who wants to team up with whom. So their deans are kind of our point of contact on all this, and so we will be monitoring. Any other kind of documentation that we would need them to sign? Because I haven't seen the contract that they signed, John, so. No one's gonna get this that's not a dean. We'll start right there, okay? All of this is gonna go only to deans, okay? Does that help? Okay. All right, going back to what Frank had brought up, do we want to restate number 6? Okay. John, da, Frank? We don't even have to have that second sentence in there.
I don't know that you even need that. If you're requiring them within 18,
Okay.
there's no option
There's no option, I
for
think
them,
we should
right?
get rid of 6.
We'll get rid of 6 and 7,
No, we need to keep 7, don't we?
because it's actually going to all of the deans in the first place.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they gotta approve it before it goes anywhere.
Could you eliminate 6, make 7 6?
Right,
There's no reason to say they've got to do the presentation. It's all about finishing the project.
right.
Once the project's finished, come and present.
Right.
Maybe the next board meeting.
Right,
Yeah,
You know what I
okay.
mean? Y'all
Right.
want a final presentation, whether that's within
Right.
the 18 months or not.
okay.
You're just going to need, I don't know, just my.
Shall be required to receive. If they're required to submit a closing report and make a presentation, it wouldn't be within 18 months.
Yeah, within the time they receive their money. From the day they,
But if they get 18 months to get it done,
mhm. It really, we're thinking 12, but then that kind of gives them
Okay,
6
that's what you're
months to,
saying.
they're not gonna be there in the summer more than likely, so we're gonna lose those 3 months.
Yeah.
So then that gives us August, October, or October, December board meetings for them to present.
But don't they have 18 months?
Yeah,
they have 18
So, I
months,
mean, that
so
would
they're
be
gonna
like-
do it within 18 months.
And-
Let's say they total 18 months to do the project.
and make a presentation to the A&E board.
Yeah, but that,
Yeah.
I mean,
That goes up to 20 months. I
No.
mean, if you say here, the way I'm reading it, it means that everything has to be reported to the board within 18 months.
Right.
So, but if they have 18 months to complete the project, then they won't.
Oh, okay, the way I'm reading this is submit a closing report and make a presentation to the board within 18 months of receipt of the grant funds. So let's say they get their grant funds June 1st of 2017.
Okay, 18 months.
Then they have 18 months to finish their project and to do a presentation to us, okay? That would put it in December of 2018 would be that needs to be stated differently. Now's our time to talk about it, so.
Don't we have somewhere in here where it says it has to take 18 months? Under the
Guidelines.
guidelines?
The project
So I think the
timeframe
report
is
should be
18
within
months.
So you're
Say
thinking
2
this is
months.
just report, not work?
Right, I mean, the presentation and report, because
Mm-hmm.
they've got 18 months. Earlier here, we say you got 18 months to finish it.
Okay,
And then we need to say, okay, once you finish it, you have 2 months to present it to the board. That gives time for for the board meeting or whatever. Or within the next 2 board meetings, maybe not even 2 months.
well, if it ends in the summer, or let's say it
That's what I'm
ends,
saying, yeah.
the end of the semester is typically in May for most colleges. So 2 months, we're not
That's
gonna
what
get them
I'm
in the
saying, that's what
summer.
I'm saying. Not 2 months, maybe 2 board meetings or 2 regularly scheduled board meetings. Oh, okay, so,
For it, and they
Right.
get all that
Okay.
done. They get all the work done. If it takes them 2 months to do.
Which is what,
Oh,
which
oh,
is
you'll
what
put
I'm saying,
academia.
what I thought
Oh,
I
you'll
was
put
saying.
academia. Okay,
If-
that sounds
if-
good.
If it's not reading that way, then let's reword it.
That's the way I was reading.
Okay.
Okay,
Then let's,
Okay.
Inclusive of the report and the presentation.
okay,
that sounds good to me then.
All right.
I will shut my mouth.
okay,
Yeah, it does,
I saw, I could see where you're going.
okay,
yeah, it does.
right.
And that's, good, yeah.
Because,
Awarding money, that could be 3
yes.
months.
Well, it doesn't mean they can't work on it ahead of time,
Right. They just have your money.
They just don't have any money, so. So are you all right with maximum of 10 pages, 5,000 words, or 1 hour? I would rather than
I have
come and make.
maximum 2 minutes, but that's okay.
Okay, so that puts us back down to the grant scoring criteria.
No, wait, what are we gonna, okay, so we're getting rid of 6,
Yes.
and are we gonna keep 7 or not keep 7?
Yeah, so, okay. So, to me, this is the hardest part we have to do is assigned value to each.
So, back when you're,
Well, for instance, if there's civil, electrical, whatever is under ABET, so if the engineering department wants to have 3 or 4 of their groups, and then they collaborate with an architect, and they collaborate with the landscape architect, then that's really 3. We're not gonna limit how many different engineering disciplines can be involved. Does that make sense? But it can't be, to me, it can't be just 3 engineering,
That's not what it says.
that's, you think that's what it says?
I think it's saying the way I read it.
Of a group. But the whole point, is that how you read it? Okay,
originally, in previous meetings, it said
yes.
which wouldn't allow 3 users.
I think Robert had brought that up, but that was kind of the whole, against what the whole purpose of the special projects was. But I'm okay within engineering, if you want to have more than one group together representing engineering, but you've got to have architecture, you've got to have landscape or interior design with it. Do we need to word that differently? Under submission of proposals, special projects, second paragraph,
I think just keep off the multiple engineering disciplines are allowed, actually.
I was saying, the way I read it, it was that, civil.
could have a, I could
together.
have a report, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be
Just
one thing.
engineering
Well,
exclusively.
but then that defeats the whole purpose of trying to get,
But that's how it's written.
Okay.
So we just,
We're in agreement.
So just strike.
so just write
Strike
multiple
that.
engineering?
yep. Now, if somebody calls and asks and says, can we have 3 engineering groups, but with an architecture, and if, that's okay? Is everybody agrees with that? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the 3 disciplines are there.
Right.
Yeah.
Really, the burden is on the architecture departments, to work, So, I think we need to stick with what our initial goal was that was working together, because we have to work together in the real world, and we work. Agree? Okay. That's why it's nice to have an educator sitting in the room. Okay,
Now the fun part.
now the fun part. This is the hard part for me, because I think they're all important.
Can I just make a statement? I think, in my opinion as a outsider, the bottom 2 are the most important, and I think should be the heaviest weighted.
Okay?
I mean, that's just my personal opinion, but I don't know how we're weighting them. I mean,
Well, let's do the quick and easy one. Matching funds available, how many points do we want to give that? 5, 10?
so that's extra credit.
Yeah.
I think if they get matching funds, I think that. Yeah,
What, John?
5%.
5, okay.
Yeah.
That was my thought. Okay. Frank, are you all right with that? Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we gave 15 points to impact on health, safety, and welfare. I mean, I'm just
That
asking.
just kind of
Or
lets
are we
you,
just comparing the others that come in as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be
so
whoever's.
we could just take that off, and then the top 2
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the highest number. So that part could just be taken off. Okay.
Because basically, it is gonna be the top 2.
Yeah, yeah.
And heaven forbid if we have a.
What if you have a bunch that just aren't very good and they score
Pull 'em
like
out.
20%?
Yeah.
and maybe none of them merit.
Can you give them negative points? Spelling.
Well, let me say, to start off,
This is all about.
that's a requirement,
Right.
and so
If
put
we,
any
if-
heavy points on it other
Okay,
than
10?
they actually supply it with it. I think 5, well, we want them to say.
Well, they have to prove it.
90% architecture and 1/4% landscape.
yeah. I was thinking 10.
I was thinking 5.
Okay, we'll start with 5 then and see how that goes. Okay, declaration of need. Again. Work plan, I think needs to have a little more weight,
Yeah.
so. Impact on the community. Grant proposal demonstrates how the project will benefit.
5 for a bonus if you.
And then 5 for bonus, yeah. That could be our,
Matching funds.
if they spell their name right, they get 110.
bet
you're not
neatness-
gonna-
Hey, I went to Ole Miss, I went to Ole Miss, we get points for
Let's do
spelling our name
neatness.
right.
You're not gonna know what their name is.
Oh, that's
That's right.
true.
That we better not know what their name is in it, so, okay. So let's go back over it one more time. So collaboration of 3 more is 5 points. Demonstration of need is 5 points. Presentation of project concept, 10 points. Presentation of work plan and budget is 20 points. Impact on the community is 5 points. Additional value to students is 10 points. Transferability is
Is to send this out to them with the.
yes. Now,
And like, so if we're looking at somebody and
All right.
we look at the collaborative
I-
and we think it's mediocre, we give it a 3.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I do want to make one comment on impact on health, safety, and welfare. So an example, helps meet federal, state, environmental guidelines on seismic or and requirements for building codes. If we put that, do you think people are going to think that's the project they have to work on? I'm not saying it's not important. I know, and I understand, he's from Memphis. No offense,
We
Blair.
need seismic.
Yeah, and yes, you do, but I don't want that to be,
Changes it.
yeah.
Well, we have our own rules.
Yeah.
So take the description.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want it to be skewed to one thing or another.
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, I did add EPA, in the list, what Philip asked for on the types of projects. Although I don't think, but to me, energy conservation and zero carbon output, kind of expresses what we're thinking about, or we could add sustainability on that list. Is EPA really?
Did Philip want us to put that you take? Yeah.
He did not say that. That's an inside joke, Blair. You'll learn that one tomorrow. So, anyway,
Take EPA out, put
well, I'm
sustainability
asking.
maybe?
can we do sustainability instead of EPA?
Where are we?
Okay, right here on our program suggestion list. I don't want to disrespect Philip because he's a great board member. But I'm trying to see how this relates.
Yeah, sustainability instead of that.
Okay,
That is sustainability. And that's a buzzword now for communities and stuff like that.
wanted to give bonus points for EPA projects, and that's because he works in
They were from like gas and water.
electrical. Okay, he works in, oh, okay. So anyway, I think we need to keep it broader. He wants to sponsor our special projects, we will let them do that. Okay. So,
And none of the rest.
Still need the deadline for project applications. And I think before you.
yeah. Okay, we're looking for
We'll
this page.
notify them after the December board meeting. I
Yes,
would-
yeah.
Just not a.
We'll look at it as soon as they give it to us. Well, Susan does, but
Well,
anyway.
if we're gonna give it, if we're gonna,
I don't think it'll matter.
a lot of times with stuff like this, if they're like me, they'll either turn it in the day they get it, they'll write it up and turn it in, the day it's due.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we'll get a lot when it first goes out, then we'll get a lot the day of the deadline.
Do we have one institution even with? Shall remain, no, not Lipscomb. They shall
Okay, so
remain
if we send it
nameless.
out next week, pending approval tomorrow, that would basically give them 10 weeks to get it to us by the end of October.
Cause they've started school, haven't
They will start school next week at UT. Now, I can't say that for every,
22nd on.
okay. So let's say they have 8 weeks if they start, September 1, so to speak. Is that plenty of time? Okay.
So, it goes out September 1, or we, they get,
I'm just,
Okay.
it's gonna go out next week if
Okay.
they approve it tomorrow.
What do we say the deadline was?
that's what we're trying to
For
figure out.
application.
Make it the 30th. I don't want it to be Halloween.
That'll be a Sunday.
I don't like Halloween. I'm sorry. I'm a Christmas and Easter person.
October
I like
30th.
Halloween, I like the colors. What about the 28th, that Friday before?
That would be great.
October 28th?
Yeah.
Is that okay, bro? Does that work for you?
Oh, I will be by fine. We're having our big chamber thing.
Scoring sheet, so you could go ahead and score it individually.
Right.
And then we'll have a grants committee meeting in
Yes.
December.
Yeah.
So we'll each score them individually without talking to each other. Send our scorecard in on. I just have,
Average for each one.
just, full disclosure. At that age, will they be doing this kind of stuff? I won't know whether she's doing it or not, but I just want everybody to know that I know she's there and all that stuff.
But her name won't be on it, and the school won't be on it.
The school won't be on it.
Okay.
We don't have the same.
All right, so let's ask one more question while I'm thinking about it. Let's say that Knoxville wants to be doing a project for the Boys and Girls Club of Knoxville. Do we want to tell them they can't tell us the person that would receive the work? I don't know. Blank that out, couldn't you,
Yeah.
John, before? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Anything
No
it
identifying
lets us- yeah.
information,
of the part of the state.
so. Okay,
Any of your discussion, what we will do is, what you can do is you can keep it
right.
in the decision-making
Right.
process, but if anybody were to do an open records request, you're going to provide that.
Oh, no, we're just talking
Okay.
about when we're judging.
When we're judging,
I mean, if somebody says they wanna do it for Le Bonheur Children's Hospital, well, that's gonna be kinda obvious.
Right.
That's probably University of Memphis. Yeah, so
that's
that would,
different.
that we'd want, yeah.
yeah.
I thought you meant like an open records.
No.
No.
No, we're not
Just,
gonna mess with your open records.
just for judging
Yeah.
purposes, so that it's not, and I have nothing against Le Bonheur, you
Right,
know?
exactly.
Or the Boys and Girls Club.
Right.
I just want us to be as fair as we can, based on the impact on the community, okay? Is that okay? And this,
If we have that earthquake, we're all gonna end up in Vicksburg anyway, so it's not gonna matter. Vicksburg or Paducah.
it's possible, achievable, for us to not have the project recipient name on there? Okay. It doesn't mean it's gonna be, more than likely, it will be a real project, but it could be something theoretical, you know, and there wouldn't be a real recipient, so.
On the instructions anywhere in the,
Add a sentence somewhere in the evaluation. They can submit it with, they should submit it with all that information, but we should go back through and remove it.
They can put that on the application around the edges if they want to, but what they give to us,
I don't wanna see it.
I don't want a name on it. I want it to be as anonymous as we can. That was a joke. That happened to me last board meeting, so. So, okay. So, do I have a motion that we accept the changes made? Aye. Is that good?
do that one.
Do we need to have a roll call dismissal of the meeting? Okay. Okay. All right. everyone's approved, we adjourn. Thank you all very much.